Why, hello. Welcome, one and all, to the Captain's Cast, the premier live stream on the Swords and Starships Channel, where we talk about all things geek, nerd culture, fantasy, sci fi, historical, entertainment, swords, and starships. That's what we do here. I am your host, Captain Garrett. Welcome to the Captain's Cast, and we have a great show for you tonight. Hi, how are you? I've been having a really weird time with movies lately. I've been looking for, look, when I go to the theater, when I turn on a movie, my greatest wish, my dear viewer, is I want to be delighted. I want to be surprised. I want to come away from it on a high and just excited and inspired. And so it gives me no pleasure to report to you that I have not had good experiences lately, and we're going to get into it. We have a lot going on. Let me just quickly say, Black Knight, aka Erigmar, is in the chat. Hello, welcome. Permission to come aboard? Granted, sir. Star Fury, good evening, and welcome aboard. Polo Surf, hello. Star Fury says usual faces, so to speak. Hey, one of these days we'll pick up a few more. This ship of entertainment exploration, its continuing mission to explore strange, new, woke Hollywood trash fires. One day shall encounter new denizens, new crew aboard this vessel. I just like saying aboard this vessel. All right, so what do we have for you today? Why, we're going to talk about our favorite subject around these parts. Around these parts, we like to talk about Disney Star Wars cringe. That's what we like to talk about. So, in this joint, we pour Disney cringe. That's what we do. So, we have to talk about a couple of, just an interesting little story right off the top. Going to get into that. Peter Pan and Wendy. I don't know why I did this, but I watched it. It's been kind of a slow news week, so I was like, "Oh, gee, what could I?" There's no Mandalorian, so what am I gonna do? So I know I miss the Mandalorian, like you just wouldn't believe. So I watched Peter Pan and Wendy. My God, I just can't even describe to you how painful that was. But I'm gonna describe to you how painful that was. And then we're going to have a nice palate cleanser because I want to talk about Oppenheimer. I want to talk about Oppenheimer. And I really want to talk about Sisu. This is going to be more of a historical Captain's Cast. We've been focusing a lot on the Starship side. I think we're going to be a little more in the historical swords side, a little bit. And you, my dear sailors and star nauts, requested of your captain that he watch Stargate SG-1. And so I have, like any servant leader, I have obliged. And so I watched the premiere episode of Stargate SG-1. And I will give you my thoughts. And I have to say, I have a lot of feelings about it. There's a lot of nostalgia. There's a lot of sadness for what we have today. And I kind of look back on it and I sort of understand why I didn't watch it. And I want to tell you more about that later because my perspective, all these years later, has changed. So, anyhow, hat tip, Black Knight. Haven't forgot about it. It's on my nightstand. Just in case you didn't know, Erigmar in the chat is an author like your dear captain, and has written the Star Shatter series. So check it out on Amazon. This would be the Rifle Song. And, I think it's very much in the vein of maybe not quite as dark, but because nothing is, but like Warhammer 40K maybe. Anyhow, but it's a gritty, no holds barred sci-fi universe. So check that out. Anyhow, I'm working on that, sir. So why don't we just jump into it? So, where to begin? let's try this headline. And these are the worst headphones ever. So if you see me all day, all night, as the case may be in your time zone, readjusting these, that is why. Yes, where is my browser? Ensign, bring me the browser. There it is. Are you excited about the new Star Wars Rey movie? Boy, I sure am. Why, this from CBR.com, why Star Wars, The Acolyte, is focusing heavily on female villains. The Acolyte showrunner, Leslie Headland, reveals her personal motivation for spotlighting female baddies in the upcoming Star Wars show. Wait, why does it say show? Are they hedging there? Are they thinking, this is one of those things that's going to go direct to streaming? What do you suppose the chances are that they produce this thing, if they produce it? Because Kathleen Kennedy's stuff just keeps getting canceled all the time. What do you say the odds are? They produce this thing, and it just goes straight to streaming because it's a big production hell nightmare. Wouldn't it be hilarious? Starfury says, I've become death, destroyers of IP. Oh, very clever. I see what you did there. So we got the Oppenheimer in the hopper. Still a girl boss line from Captain Carter when she first meets the Colonel. Oh, we're getting ahead of ourselves, Starfury. But yes, I have to say, Captain Carter is quite fetching. She's quite a handsome woman. Most definitely. The captain took notice. Indeed. Eric Bar says they can't pull off a female baddie even if their pitiful skin's dependent on it. Oh, well, we're going to get into it. But about Captain Carter, referring to Stargate SG-1, I have thoughts about her sort of girl boss line. She comes in, there's literally a whole dialogue where she's just girl bossing the hell out of him. And you would think, and a part of me was like, this is when it all started, because this is the 90s. The 90s was when the woke were, there wasn't really a woke movement back then. It was just progressives. And they were like kind of liberal and peaceful. And so, they seemed harmless. They really did. But that being said, I actually don't think it's a super, I don't find it to be a propagandistic scene because of the context of both the scene and the time and actually how it plays out. So we will talk about it. That is coming up. But first, the Acolyte creator and showrunner Leslie Headland recently explained why the upcoming Star Wars streaming series focuses heavily on female villains. Headland discussed the Acolyte's baddie-centric approach to storytelling in an interview with Empire, revealing that it was her experiences as a pop culture fan growing up. When I was a young queer girl, I was just hanging out with Ursula, the sea witch from The Little Mermaid, she said. As a queer girl growing up, if you don't identify with the heroes and the villains, when they show up and they're all queer-coded, you're like, yes, that's me. Headland also touched on how this will affect the Acolyte's tone, hinting that the show will offer... Why do they keep saying show? Okay, oh, that's right. This is the Acolyte. I'm thinking of the Rey movie. No, this is a show. Okay, my bad. Your captain has been corrected. Hinting that the show will offer a more arch vibe than Star Wars fans are used to. This was a line, this arch vibe thing. Okay, this must be one of the new buzzwords that's floating around because this was in Star Trek Picard. There's a line in which Lore is monologuing, because Lore did that in Star Trek The Next Generation, and Geordi's daughter, Alana, says, has he always been this arch? So I'm thinking, this is a word that's going around. It's making the rounds. And you know what I think it is? I think what it means is nerdy comic booky villain. Just, it's very nerdy. It's very old fashioned. It's not very modern. It's very arch. And it's very much about the villains being just bad for no reason. Ew. Anyway, as a queer filmmaker, you're gonna see some camp in The Acolyte, inevitably. But I would say that tonally, our references are darker, she teased. Let me just give you some life advice. Do your best. If you're using the phrase as a identity group, insert whatever, do your best. It's not always possible, but do your best to expunge this from your language, because this is an absurd. This is what's wrong with the woke movement, right? Because everything is about your surface level identity, and everything is about dividing people into groups. Everything is about you have no business. You need to be speaking from whatever your superficial stereotype is. And that is what should be informing all of your decisions. And this is going to tie back to my thoughts on Captain Carter in Stargate SG-1, because I think it was a different story 30 years ago. And now what it's turned into is I can't just say, here's my approach to filmmaking, right? She can't just say that. She has to say, as a queer filmmaker, by the way, I hate this word queer. I absolutely hate it. And if you've watched some of my older videos, it's only germane to this conversation, but I would fit in the quality of the B, in the LGBT, right? And I don't consider that, I want nothing to do with the word queer. I want nothing to do with any of those letters, quite frankly, because I am an individual. I am who I am. I'm not asking anyone's permission for it. And most of what's important about me has to do with what I do, my personality, my friends, my family, the work that I do on this channel, the work that I do in my fiction. I have no interest in people that want to banner wave about something that really is the smallest detail of their life. Because what it really is it's a way of claiming victimhood and claiming grievance. And there was this clip, maybe I'll play it later, where there was a writer who was criticizing the woke movement, and she got caught kind of not being able to answer because the journalist, sorry, I misspoke. The media shill that was trying to get a clip out of it and succeeded asked her, define woke. You have to admit, someone who's wrote literally a book on the woke movement, not being able to define that in an interview is pretty bad. But I could define that 5 different ways anytime you ask. So happy to do it. I have a new kind of definition. I think wokeness is revenge culture. That is what I would call it. It's revenge culture, because they say they want equity. They say they want equality. That's not actually what they want. They want revenge. And I'm going to prove it to you in one of the upcoming articles that we have. So we continue. The showrunner discussed the Acolyte's more morally ambiguous spin on Star Wars franchise in a previous interview, noting that she took her cues for this from 1999's The Phantom Menace. Oh, wow. she's picked... Folks, she's picked the best of the Star Wars movies. She's picked the best of the original 6. She went all the way back to The Phantom Menace, what everyone is largely considered the greatest film ever made. And it's not even in the machete order. I mean, come on. She went all the way back to The Phantom Menace specifically. She singled out the film's portrayal of the Jedi Order as being more fallible than previously assumed, as something that the Acolyte will explore in greater detail. The Jedi really think they're right, and Star Wars creator George Lucas tells us that they're wrong in The Phantom Menace. Is that what he said? Is that what he told us? They missed a huge aspect of the dark side rising that just felt like fertile ground to look into what's going on for all of us right now. The Acolyte boss on The Last Jedi, Headland, recently cited a more recent franchise installment, Star Wars The Last Jedi. Oh no, she's gone from The Phantom Menace to The Last Jedi as an influence on the Acolyte story. The showrunner, of course she did, the showrunner praised The Last Jedi writer-director Rian Johnson for offering a critical view of the Jedi. Star Wars fans, you've had it too good for too long. Shame on you. Shame on you for not being more critical of this stupid black and white binary way of looking at adventure stories. I think that especially in that moment, people were very nervous about saying this particular institution, meaning the Jedi, may not be the light and perfect, stunning group of heroes that are totally nobly intentioned, Headland said. Hedlund also reiterated that the revisionist stance on the Jedi Order she and Johnson share is in keeping with the Star Wars prequels. Well, look at how they're cozying up to the prequels all of a sudden. You know why? Because they know. Because you know what? They hated the prequels. That's the whole reason for that. The very first line in the sequel trilogy, say it with me, this will begin to set things right. Meaning the prequels sucked, and we're here to make everything better. And they actually just succeeded in vindicating George Lucas's vision for the prequels and getting uniting most of Star Wars fandom in saying, hat in hand, Mr. Lucas, we're sorry. The Phantom Menace wasn't as bad as we thought. You know, maybe I'll watch that pod race scene again after all. But now that their horrible writing, is particularly in The Last Jedi, has rehabilitated the prequels, they're now cozying up to the prequels. And they're saying, don't worry, folks, this is going to be like the prequels. Aren't you excited? Casual Star Wars fans needn't worry about brushing up on too much Star Wars lore. Prior to diving into The Acolyte, though, Lucasfilm president Kathleen Kennedy, isn't she beautiful, said as much during a recent interview, insisting that The Acolyte is one of several upcoming Star Wars projects designed to serve as an entry point for viewers with little or no prior knowledge of the long-running franchise's history. The Acolyte is slated to premiere on Disney Plus sometime in 2024. That they'd like that, wouldn't they? They would like to attract an audience that has no memory of Star Wars. They have no memory of, excuse me, Sir Madam Marit. Have you ever heard of a thing called Star Wars? No, what's that? Would you like to watch my TV show? It's called Star Wars: The Acolyte. Do I need to know about anything else in the previous Star? No, you don't. In fact, it's better. It's better if you don't, because you're gonna like it more that way. I'm so sorry that my cousin, he's about 23, had never seen Star Wars, and I not all the way through. He'd seen clips of it. He knew about it in pop culture. And so we watched it in machete order. This is before The Last Jedi had come out. And it was amazing. It was a magical experience. We bonded over it. It was great. And The Force Awakens at that time, was still a mystery box. And I liked it. I was okay. Yes, I liked The Force Awakens at that time. In retrospect, I could see the damage that it did. It's same with the J.J. Abrams movies. I liked them at first. And in retrospect, they're the worst thing that ever happened to Star Trek, the J.J. Abrams Trek movies. Now, I'm so sorry I introduced you to this universe. I'm not sorry that he saw the original, we did machete order, so we left out The Phantom Menace. So we basically did A New Hope, Empire Strikes Back, Attack of the Clones, Revenge of the Sith, which I actually really like for Revenge of the Sith, and then Return of the Jedi. Empire Strikes Back is the best one, though. And he loved it, and that's fine. But now I feel guilty because then he went and watched the sequel trilogy in the theaters with me and got to watch it all burn. Look, the captain is not infallible. What can I say? It is a kind of narcissism that is just beyond the pale. That these writers, they constantly need this validation. Everything they do is about me as a queer woman, me as a BIPOC woman. It's like, what outcome? What outcome are you actually looking for anymore? Because I don't actually think it's representation. I think at this point, as I said, I think what they want is revenge. And Peter Pan and Wendy, that is revenge porn for identity politics, let me tell you. So we're going to get into that. But that being said, the chat's been going by while I've been reading that. And, let me see if I can pull a few great quotes here. Starfury says, as Leslie Headland loved woman so much, she leads so many of the proverbial death at the hands of Weinstein, so long as she could get ahead. Yes, basically, the human sacrifice to Weinstein. Hollywood has no business taking the moral high ground on anything. Erigmar says, a harmless idiot alone is harmless. A throng of harmless idiots is a why can't I speak today? Civilizational ending disaster. Star Fury says, someone had their hands on a thesaurus. Yes. You know, back before the internet, it wasn't before the internet, but it was before the ubiquitous internet in the late 90s when I was writing my novels, I had just worn out a dictionary and a thesaurus, and they sat next to my writing table while I worked on stuff. I used to read the dictionary. Like, read it. Isn't that sick? That's just sick. Silverback is in the chat. Permission to come aboard? Granted, sir. He says, ahoy, Captain. Ahoy. Ahoy. Erigmar says, Ryan Johnson, the round-headed simpleton. Yeah, my favorite, critical drinker quote was when he's going on a rant. He's like, why did you do this in your movie? Why did you do that in that movie? Why is your head shaped like a fucking soccer ball? I just lost it. It's so funny. Fu Man Blue says, permission to come aboard, Captain. Permission granted, sir. You may embark. Starfury says, Headland has no understanding of Star Wars and what stage of the Republic was at in its cycle. Clearly no understanding of history. Yeah, I was watching an RK Outpost video. Hat tip RK Outpost, Ryan Kinnell, and he was reading a quote from one of the writers who's going to be working on the new Rey movie, I think, and he was saying something. He had been... it was the guy that they canned. It was the guy they recently fired. He was the director. Crap, what was his name? He's a real hack. I forget. Help me out, Chad, if you remember his name. But he was one of the prominent, tools that they had signed on to write some movie, and they shit-canned his project. They got rid of him. And he was basically saying, as Yoda would say, well, try again. That's my policy. Or as Yoda would say... He just reversed it. Something like, again, try. That's what he did. He said, again, try. And Ryan Kittle just blew his stack. He's like, look, you fucking idiot. That's not what Yoda would say. Thank God you did not get the Star Wars movie. Because he would have said do. He would have said do or do not. Do not try. Oh my God. And I just lost it. I was like, that's so right. These people don't understand Star Wars at all. To be fair, look, I think most creatives in Hollywood that get superhero projects, fantasy, sci-fi, science fiction, Star Trek, Star Wars, it's a job to them. And a lot of them don't understand it. And I think that, back in the 80s and 90s, they had to kind of earn the fan base back then. If your show had bad ratings, it got canceled. That's just the way it was. And we are in this weird... We got two things going on now. We have got the streaming situation where there's just a total disconnect between the actual numbers that a show is doing, because there's all this cloak and dagger, there's all this propaganda, they're constantly hiding everything. And then you also have the ESG situation. By the way, Midnight's Edge did a great breakdown, and this really was a fascinating point that Midnight's Edge made. He basically breaks down how ESG has gotten into all the banks, and that basically if you are a corporation and you're just trying to pay the bills, one of the things that you need is a line of credit. And in order to have a line of credit, you've got to meet all these ESG scores. And more banks are starting to do this. And so companies like Bud Light, for example, that was a weird pause there. I made it sound like I've never heard of it before. Bud Light. Apparently, it's some sort of spirit. I don't know. Bud Light is one of these companies. I swear I know what it is. It's one of these companies that they're kind of in a rock and a hard place, because if they don't play ball, they're going to lose that line of credit, and they're not going to be able to keep the lights on, because that's how they pay bills while revenue's coming in. But they're also going to lose their customers. So what is a soulless corporation to do? And so this is part of what's propping up these idiots that know nothing about these franchises. So, but there's it might even kind of explain why they're so hard in the paint for all the woke stuff, because there's no connection to them and their audience anymore. Their audience is something to fight with on Twitter. The ratings are something to be concealed and lied about by the company and then by the media. So what is the actual measure of their success? The measure of their success is how many wokey points that they get. So, oh man, I saw one I wanted to say. Fu Man Blue says, why are there no earthquakes in your parts? How do you know there aren't? There are in my parts. But you probably weren't addressing me, yes. Star Fury says, British humor can be very dry and also very UK-centric. That is true. Silverback said Rogue One was fantastic, though. I agree. Rogue One was the best thing that Disney Star Wars did, and I really love that movie. However, I have heard critiques of this film that moved me a little on this one, because one of the critiques I heard was just take out Star Wars, like all the Star Wars lore, the Star Wars name, just take all that out of it, and just have it be a film, like a war film about, having to accomplish this mission, and would it still be as interesting of a film? And I had to think about it. I was like, I don't know. I'm kind of on the fence. I feel like, yeah, when you think about it, Andor and what's her name are a little bit bland as heroes go, and I am not a fan of the Andor. I liked Andor in Rogue One. I really did not like him in that Andor series. You probably haven't heard my take on Andor before. I think Andor was the best made Star Wars TV show on Disney Plus, for sure. And yet it was absolutely horribly paced. It was horribly written. It was not written for TV, and it had a slow plot. I literally skipped chunks of time in that show. I wound up just watching every third episode, because I heard that like every third episode is when something happens. So I would just watch the previously on. And then I was like, oh, yeah, about every third episode was pretty good in that show because something was happening. The other two episodes suffered from the Game of Thrones syndrome, which is in Game of Thrones, you get 40 minutes of people talking circles around each other with nothing happening. And then you get like 10 minutes of like, oh my God, he killed the Viper and squished his head. Oh my God. But the rest of the show is just walks through the garden, plotting about things, but nothing ever gets, like, it doesn't move the needle on anything. You get one scene here or there of Joffrey torturing someone, but then the rest of it is like, I see that you want the Iron Throne. Me? I don't want the Iron Throne. You want the Iron Throne. Well, chaos is a ladder. I will climb my way to the Iron Throne. It's like, I had a love-hate relationship with that show. House of the Dragon was good, though. Lindelof! That's it. Who called it? It was David Lindelof that got fired and said the Yoda quote that was wrong. Yes. That would be Fu Man Blue. Yeah, Lindelof, I think his name is. I think. Star Fury says, someone also said there is no good or evil in Star Wars. Wow. Now, that is an excellent point, my dear sailors of Stardust. I want to fix that as if there is a theme to this show tonight, this Captain's Cast, which please hit that like button, please subscribe, turn on notifications if you haven't. I am your host, Captain Garrett, if you're just joining us. If there is a theme for tonight's Captain Cast on the Swords and Starships channel, it is this. It is the inability of modern writers to believe or to understand and certainly to write the concept of good versus evil. Even as they claim their ideological opponents are evil, they are incapable of actually committing to the concept that there is such a thing as evil. Now, why is this? I have a theory. Wrangler in the chat, permission to come aboard granted. Welcome to the Captain's Cast. Hail, says Wrangler. Bud Light, oh, piss water. Yes. Well, a lot of people are like, why would you give up your favorite beer just for some stupid boycott? Just because some guy you don't, sorry, some gal YouTube. I said gal, some gal, yeah, right, exactly. That you don't like had her face on a can. Why would you stop drinking your favorite beer? It's like, if your favorite beer is Bud Light, no disrespect, and believe me, I have family members who drink Bud Light, and I've had this conversation with them. Nobody should drink that beer ever. It's awful. I in college I drank Natural Light. Oh, God. Natty Light. Oh, how was that even a thing? How could I have ever done that to myself? So, yes, there you have it. There you have it. So let us continue. Let us continue with Ray Skywalker. She's so exciting. I cannot wait for this movie. Star Wars, this from CBR, has the perfect enemy for Ray Skywalker's return. This is a Blue Pill article, and I'm very excited to read it to you. Preparing Blue Pill article incoming. Brace for impact. Daisy Ridley will reprise her role as Rey Skywalker in a new Star Wars film, and the Bad Batch has provided her with a terrifying opponent. I'm going to skip all the preamble here because it's largely boring. Star Wars has a new order in the Ancients. The Bad Batch, Season 2, Episode 5, Entombed, introduced a mysterious group called the Ancients. When Fee and Clone Force 99 go treasure hunting. This is why I can't take these cartoons anymore. This was like, I can't stand these episodes where they're going through some kind of maze or something, or it's one of these episodes where they're going through like there's all these puzzles they have to solve. It's like, I'll just play a video game. I don't need to watch this. They encounter traps, glyphs, and puzzles as they seek a relic called the Heart of the Mountain. However, their excursion reveals a massive, sentient war machine, Skara Nal, an apparent nod to mech warriors from the likes of Pacific Rim and Transformers. The machine, how about you just make a mech warrior movie? That would be cool. But please don't. No, not today. Not in this timeline. The machine tries to raise the planet, but the crew destroys it instead. However, Fee confesses it's linked to the fabled sect known as the Ancients. Tech runs diagnostics and confirms the technology predates the Jedi and the Sith. That is a game changer because it means whether they're a cult, aliens, or droids, the Ancients may have remained hidden for all this time, waiting on a challenge like Rey. Star Wars Ancients kill the past and evolve the present. A confrontation with these new Star Wars villains, the Ancients, would past the rinse and repeat threat. They're using past as a verb here. It's using past as a verb. Would past the rinse and repeat threat of Palpatine. And who introduced the rinse and repeat threat of Palpatine, dipshit? Like, your guys are the ones that put the rinse and repeat Palpatine shit into the sequel. Oh my God, these people. I get so frustrated with them. You're sitting here trying to prop up this dumb, awful crap, and you're citing as the problems. The very same people that are writing this trash are the same people that created the rinse and repeat Palpatine. Oh, we got to get away from that. That's why we're going to hire Rian Johnson. It would also allow Rey to use her new Jedi mantra, combining what Luke taught her with taught her what? What did Luke teach her? He taught her nothing. He taught her nothing in that movie. What did he taught her? With the knowledge gleaned from the sacred texts, with a villain that melds tech and mysticism to wreak planetary havoc. There are tons of Fu soldiers. The Ancients... Fu? What the hell is that? The Ancients can employ, upgrading what enemies like Darth Vader and Kylo Ren once offered. Such antagonists would push Rey, who may very be a gray Jedi, and harness both the light and dark sides of the Force. Poe, Finn, R2-D2, C-3PO, Rose, Janna, and Chewbacca, and Lando can provide Rey with assistance against this mysterious empire that has weapons of mass destruction stored all across the galaxy, worse than the Palpatine fleet. The Final Order, Rey, there's so much to tell. Rey can also train and deploy new Jedi Knights in a time jump, turning the group into an army against a legion no one else knows anything about. The way is even paved to shape the Ancients as the foundational group that splintered off, forming the Jedi and Sith religions, both of whom use science and supernatural in their work. Such a direction redefines the start of George Lucas's vision for Star Wars, because fuck George Lucas, and honors, we don't want wars in our Star Wars, and honors what came before with the Force, Death Stars, and such, while providing more badass, more destructive opposition than black-cloaked folk or just Jedi arguing about ideals. This can work in more Indiana Jones-like treasure hunts or stories that are grounded or wild and bombastic. Ultimately, such a direction crafts surprise, a blank slate, and true evolution, naturally building on what Luke wanted Rey to accomplish. I rest my case. Wow, that sounds really exciting. They're digging into the Bad Batch, folks. I watched a couple episodes of the Bad Batch, right? And I'm like, I can't do it. I can't do it. I don't know what, it's just not interesting anymore. The Clone Wars, I could do about every other episode, about every third episode, I thought was pretty good. But I had to kind of wade through it. And I will say, the clones were like the best part of it. But there is something about the kind of Skyrim fetch quest nature of the storylines in the Bad Batch. I just can't do it anymore. And so this guy is digging through the Bad Batch for this is how we're going to evolve Star Wars. This is how we're going to kill the past. And it's going to be so glorious. And we're so glad we're not going to have any more of that crap about rinse and repeat Palpatine. That your idiotic vision of, that you're shilling for is what introduced the rinse and repeat Palpatine. They had no ideas. JJ had no clue how to salvage the shitstorm that Rian Johnson introduced, because he is a low-rent hack writer who had no business getting anywhere near Star Wars. What a little troll Rian Johnson is. And in a way, and I'm probably different than some of his critics in this way, I almost don't even blame Rian Johnson for being the way he is. He's somewhat of a product of his environment, in my view. I just think that he's been marinating in this world for so long that it's all he knows. And it takes, when I'm writing my own stories, it takes mental discipline to recognize, oh shoot, I'm bringing in this trope that's been circulating in my consciousness without even realizing it. Perfect example. I'm working on this character, and he's a leader, and he has to make a choice between family and duty. And I had originally written a storyline in which he was going to sort of, his son was going to be raised without him. And when I thought about it, I suddenly realized I couldn't do that to this character because, number one, given his backstory, he would never abandon his own child, no matter how much duty called. And I realized it was the wrong thematic element. And I'm like, now where does that come from? Where does that instinct to put that in there come from? It comes from the fact that I'm a victim of the same moral zeitgeist that I'm living in myself. And so those things just float through your consciousness. Someone like Rian Johnson, everyone in his world, subvert expectations, subvert tropes. It's we must be critical of Star Wars and the Jedi. We must be critical. It's like, why? Why? We don't need to be critical. You can be reflective. You can reflect on what is truly moral and what is truly good. We're going to dig into that. Don't worry. Don't worry, folks. Rey is coming for you misogynisms fans. Yes, says Eric Marr. Oh, she's coming. She is coming. Fu Man Blue says Chuck Norris is Chuck Norris. LMAO. Yeah, isn't there's some show where there's like a girl Chuck Norris? There's a girl Texas Ranger or something, and she's Walker Texas Ranger. I know nothing about this show, so I can offer no critique. But yes. Is that a Chuck Norris joke? Starfury says, no, Chuck Norris was the Big Bang. He got so sick of all the dark, he punched it. Yes. Chuck Norris does not do push-ups. Chuck Norris pushes the world down. Starfury says, why does all modern journalistic writing make me get nosebleeds? Yeah. Fu Man Blue says, I'm watching 12 Monkeys. They get nosebleeds when the timeline changes. What you into, Star? Wrangler says 12 Monkeys was a trippy flick. Yeah, the movie was good. There's a show on Hulu. It's actually pretty good. I was watching it, and it was pretty good, and then I got distracted, and I forgot about it, and so I've left it. So I actually might come back to it. But I'm watching Stargate SG-1, so we'll see how that goes. It's going pretty good so far. Yeah, so Wrangler says, a mystery box is only worthwhile if you eventually get to open it up and look inside, and the reveal better be satisfying. This is what's so idiotic about, mystery box is a term coined by J.J. Abrams, I think, or at least in his TED Talk. He may have been referring to someone else who had coined the term, but I think he coined it. I don't know. I definitely don't want to give him credit. He's not due. But he I believe, coined the term mystery box to say that it's not actually that important in story structure that every question be answered. It can actually be quite valuable if you just have a mystery that is left to the imagination. Now, on the face of it, that's not necessarily incorrect. Like, that can actually be very true. And there are some examples of film, like, for example, Star Trek Generations. One of the worst creative decisions in that whole movie was attempting to show the Nexus, which is, they showed what heaven would look like, which is a terrible idea because it's so mundane to visualize it in a movie. You should leave that to the imagination. Or you've got like the suitcase in Pulp Fiction, right? We never find out what's in it. That can work. And the point that J.J. Abrams was ostensibly making was that if it's not specifically germane to the resolution of the story, then you don't need the reader to get that, or the viewer or whatever, to get that payoff. But I actually think either he doesn't understand the depth, he doesn't understand story structure, or as much as he thinks he does, or he's taken it too far. He got really excited about this idea he came up with, and then he just spammed it. I actually tend to think he can't write endings. By the way, there's a lot of writers that can write beginnings. There's a lot of writers that can write beginnings and middles. It is hard to stick the landing. That takes skill. That takes craftsmanship. It takes hard work. And it takes rewrites. It takes editorial critique. It takes a lot. Writing, I'm obsessed with sticking the landing in my own work. It drives me nuts. It keeps me up at night. It's, Michael Crichton, I believe it was Michael Crichton, famously, when he'd get closer and closer to the end of his novel, he'd start working longer and longer hours, more and more furiously. He'd even go to a hotel and just work around the clock. And you know why? Because when you're a writer, you understand that the closer you get to the end, the more powerful resistance becomes and the more terrifying it is. Because if you lose that momentum, you're dead. You're killed. And another famous writer who is historically terrible at writing endings was Stephen King. He's even mocked himself for it in his own work, writing about writers in some of his stories that could not write endings. I think Misery might be an example of this, if I'm not mistaken. But I know there's a character in at least one of his stories that, he can't write endings, which was literally referring to... Oh, no, it was It. Bill. The main character in It, that in the book, if you've read the book, he's a writer when he becomes an adult, and he can't write endings, which is literally a reference. It's a self-insert, I guess you could say, of Stephen King. So this is hard to do. And I think J.J. Abrams is kind of brilliant because he is a writer who not only has trouble writing endings, like he can't. He just can't do it. And he came up with a TED Talk that lets him off the hook. That's brilliant. Like, he's like, listen, you don't need to write an ending, my friend. Let me tell you why. It's called the mystery box. It's like, no. That's not how story structure works. There's a thing called setup and payoff. And payoff with setup. They go hand in hand. The two live and breathe together. I literally will sometimes get inspired and I'll write a payoff. I'll be like, oh, that'll be so cool when so-and-so shows up and does this. But I then remember that, but I have to make sure I set this up in the beginning or it won't have the right dramatic weight. And so I have to go back to the beginning and I have to write, the setup, right? I have to sprinkle in hints that this is coming, or I have to make a reference to something that the reader the reader will remember when they get to that payoff. You have to do that because the payoff won't have emotional weight if there's no setup. And the setup will go nowhere if there's no payoff. And so all the mystery box is a setup with no payoff. That's all it is. And it is the dog ate my homework excuse for writers that suck at what they do and are lazy about their craft. So, Happy Mother's Day, by the way. Call your mom. Call your grandma. Call your Mima. What else is happening, my dear sailors and star nuts? Okay. Should we do Oppenheimer next or Peter Pan and Wendy? Which would you rather hear me talk about? Because one is going to be good news and the other is going to be bad news. And I don't think it'll be hard for you to guess. Wrangler says, I've done that a few times in one book. Fix the setup, I mean. Got to do it, my friend. Got to do it. Owe it to your readers. Look, a story doesn't have to be perfect. You could get away with, little plot holes here and there. But, you cannot be lazy in your storytelling. So, let's talk about Peter Pan and Wendy. This took a chunk out of me. I got to be honest with you. I'm beginning to understand why YouTubers that review things like Velma or, for example, Gary, he won't review anymore Star Wars. And I kept like, oh, come on, Gary. Be a good, that would be Gary at Nerdrotic, by the way. Hail Nerdrotic F&T. Friday Night Tights. I forget. There are viewers who don't know what those words mean. And I think, Gary, don't be a stick in the mud. Go watch some Picard and review it for me. Go watch some, Mandalorian and review it for me. And I'm beginning to understand, now that I've been doing this for a few months, that, it takes a toll, folks. It takes a toll. To literally undertake to watch something you have no desire to watch whatsoever, and then and watch it all. Oh my God. That's a new experience, I gotta tell you. So let's take a look at, before I'll show you this. I'll show you this first. Let's just let's just do this first. Here is the Rotten Tomatoes score on this. Oh, jeez. Okay, I got to turn off my ad blocker. Just the worst. Okay, there we go. 12% audience score. 12% audience score for Peter Pan and Wendy, the new, exciting, soulless remake of the Peter Pan fable on Disney Plus. And I have to admit, even for the dishonest, shill, soulless, corporate, snotty media, this 62% score on this movie is kind of unfathomable to me. Disney has some serious juice. They are, I think I heard, who was it that was, maybe it was Yellow Flash or it was Midnight's Edge. I can't remember where I heard this, but someone was saying, they have it was Yellow Flash. Yeah. They have some kind of racket. Disney gets more undue praise from the media than any other company. And this is proof right here, because I'm telling you, even the most shill of the shills can't have enjoyed the experience of this movie. Now, yes, the wokies will love it because it's the whole thing is like, just go find me every woke stereotype, bumper sticker, slogan, whatever it is, it's all in here. This thing's got it all. It's just so awful. They have lines that make your skin crawl. They're so propagandistic. They are just so like Soviet level propaganda. It's like just, oh God. Okay. And this kid that plays Peter Pan, hear me when I say this, my dear sailors and starnauts. In my life, I have never seen a child actor with less charisma, with less acting ability in a leading role, ever. It's like he is the worst of, and there's a lot of bad child acting in this movie, like a lot. He beats them all by a mile. He has no charisma. He can barely say his line. He literally mumbles his lines through his teeth. He's like, right, because that's he talks like this. He's like, yes, because we have to go and fight the pirates. We have to go fight the pirates. And I'm just like, kid, like, take a theater class. Like, you got to project. You got to speak. It's like, this kid cannot. He literally is like a middle school theater, like, first year student, like, learning to say lines. That's how bad he is. It's unbelievable. But worse than that, he doesn't fit the archetype of Peter Pan in any way. Like, it's not even that he just doesn't even look like the character but that's not even, he doesn't, I'll just, let me just go dig up the trailer for you. Yeah, because, I might lose my audience over this. I won't play too much of it, I promise. I just want you to hear how he talks. And plus, we could give it a downvote while we're at it. I probably already downvoted it. How about this one? This one looks promising. I gotta make sure my desktop audio is on. Okay, cool. Let me know if you can't hear it.
What is this place? It's home.
Peter found it. Just like he found all of us.
Just like he found me. Peter Pan?
Were you expecting someone else?
Look at this kid. Look at him. He looks awkward. He looks dopey. He's got like, and look, I understand he is a boy, he's not a man, and Peter Pan is supposed to, but he's got like no energy of adolescence. Like, he literally seems like a kid that is, he's the indoor type, okay? No disrespect. Hey, I'm the indoor type. I'm not judging anyone. I'm just saying, this is not the kid that's out like, playing ball or climbing trees. This is the kid that is, he's doing TikTok all day, okay? That's what this kid is doing with his time. He has, but, there's, the whole thing about Peter Pan is this, right? Peter Pan is supposed to have zest. He's supposed to have verve. He loves life. He loves adventure. He loves fighting pirates. Every sword fight in this movie has no energy. It's literally like ching, 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 ching. And they're just like, and it's like the most stereotypical choreographed moves. I swear to God, I think they went and found some kind of, like, no disrespect, but let's just face it. This would not be the right person for this. They went and found a high school drama teacher who has done Shakespeare with a few sword fights and choreographed this thing. It is so bad. And the worst part is that this kid that is an absolute charisma black hole. He has, like, there's nothing inspiring about him. He has no energy. He has no, like, vitality of any kind. He doesn't seem like would even really be interested. He's literally just mumbling. He's mumbling things like, we have to go and fight the pirates. We're going to go fight the pirates. It's me and the Lost Boys. This is what we've always done. We always fight pirates. That's like, every line is like that. He's like, right, Wendy, we're going on to Neverland for second star till morning. I'm like, and he's saying it all through his teeth. I can't stand it. And he's got this big dumb nose. I'm sorry. Okay, look, I'm sorry. I'm sorry that the movie business is for pretty people. Look, I've been told I have a face for radio. I'm just saying. It's, it's nothing personal. It's the way it is. Not all of us are suited to be in front of the camera. Okay? Some of us do it anyway, against all advice. Now, that being said, he's playing opposite Jude Law. Jude Law is an actual actor. So it's like the most one-sided. It's horrible. Hang on, I gotta hit the cough button for a second here. Jude Law. Now Jude Law, okay, is arguably the best part of this movie. I would say he has moments that are not bad. But this is the weirdest take on Captain Hook I've ever seen. I got to tell you, he's in a blue coat for most of the movie. Why? That's not what he's supposed to look like. Captain Hook wears a red coat. So why is he in a blue coat? Now, you could argue that they're trying to make it more authentic to the British Navy, which would have been blue coats. I'd say, but who cares? Like, that's not the point. That you're trying to ostensibly visually match the original animated film. And then in the end of the film, he has a red coat. Why? It's very visually confusing. He doesn't have any of the gravitas of Dustin Hoffman's Hook from the movie Hook, which I love. There's none of that. He doesn't have any of the intimidation or threatening factor of the Hook from the animated series. He's odd. You know what he is? He's a cartoon. He's just a cartoon character, basically, but not a good one, because the original animated film, at least that Hook, was intimidating. And yes, he was kind of dumb at times, but like when he was a threat, he was a threat. And at least his voice was expressive, and he had character. He was a larger-than-life... Look, if you are going to tell a story about a pirate captain has got to be larger than life. See Jack Sparrow for examples. See Captain Barbossa for examples, as played by the great Jeffrey Rush. See Davy Jones for examples in Pirates of the Caribbean, I'm referring to. You have got to be a larger-than-life character to be a pirate captain. This take on Captain Hook is just, it's maudlin, it's low energy, it's all over the place, and there's another weird thing, too, which is Jude, because you can't make the argument they were trying to be historically authentic, because they weren't, because Jude Law has his hair all grown out, and it's long, and, if you look at the source material, which is, I would argue, both Hook and the animated series, more on that in just a second, Jude Law's hair is not how a man of that era, I'm assuming the 16 or 17, probably the 17 or 1800s, I would say. I would say late 1600s to early 1700s is where I would place Hook based on the ship and everything. It looks like a galleon. Anyhow, that's not the kind of hair that a man of that age would wear. Now, he is a pirate, so maybe he doesn't care. But like back then, you would most likely wear a wig. This was to avoid lice. And if you're sailing around in the Caribbean where it's tropical and hot and swampy, that's even more reason to have your head shaved and wear a wig. And so you may wonder, why did people wear powdered wigs back then? It was because there weren't things like, anti-lice shampoo. And so that was a way of getting around it. Plus, that was more dignified. It was a way of presenting your appearance with dignity in society. And Hook he's supposed to be a man of kind of culture. And there were real historical pirates that were like this, such as Bartholomew Roberts, as an example. And they did conduct themselves with a kind of cultural status, right? And so Hook is supposed to be that kind of a character. So why is he not wearing a wig? But if he's not wearing a wig, why is his hair all long and stringy like that? So he doesn't visually look like the animated character. It's not historically accurate either. So the choice makes no sense. Meanwhile, they have all these little lines in the movie that are direct references to the Hook movie. And that just pissed me off. Because I was like, you greedy SOBs. Like, you just can't help yourself. It's not enough. It's not enough to hollow out the animated series that's your own damn source material. It's not enough to completely vandalize and bastardize and like basically insult J.M. Barrie and his original novel, you have to stick your hand in the till of the Hook movie, directed by Steven Spielberg, because you know people loved that movie. And in that movie, Peter Pan is a good father, played by Robin Williams. Well, he's a struggling absentee father who steps back into the role of a good father, who saves his children, and he becomes a hero again. It's a redemption story for a male leading man. So they just can't help themselves. And they want to draft on the incredible performance of Dustin Hoffman. And they want you to think that this is the prequel to that movie. Oh, fuck off. There is no universe in which I'm ever going to consider this the prequel to anything except a nap. Okay? This movie is such shit. It is such shit. And I haven't even gotten to Wendy. Yet. So look, obviously she's a girl boss. We could just pretty much, that we'll just consider that as read. She's a total girl boss. She can't be saved by no man. She's got to be. There's literally a line in this where she gets the pixie dust, and she floats up on the ship, and Captain Hook says, which by the way is a weird line anyway, but he says, "You have the boy's powers." Was that a line in any of the source material ever? I mean, maybe in the novel, I don't know, but that line struck me as odd. Like, that's the thing you say? But anyway. Well, this is why he said it, because that allowed her to say, these are the powers of no boy. And Tinkerbell is like grinning right next to her. And look, the actress who plays Tinkerbell, she's gorgeous. She's beautiful. She does not look like Tinkerbell. That's not what Tinkerbell looks like. So I'm sorry. It's like, and it's not even that Tinkerbell absolutely has to look like the source material. She doesn't, Tinkerbell is a brand. She's like a brand logo. The blonde hair pixie, is the logo of like the whole Disney brand. So how can you possibly cast an actress who doesn't look this way? And I just find this so despicable because, they are using people. They're sort of inserting people into this weird culture war that they're fighting, but they're pretending not to fight it. They're pretending that, we just cast the best person for the part. And it's like, no, you didn't. You went out and you filled a racial quota. Just admit it. That's what you did. But they won't admit it because they like being able to have this ability to gaslight you and to think that what you're seeing is not what you're seeing. So anyway. But that being said, the actress that plays Tinkerbell, she's gorgeous. The effects for Tinkerbell were awful. Like, they're awful. She's not the right size. They make her like this big. She's literally the size of like a bug. I don't know why they made this choice. At no moment in this movie does her CGI look like anything other than the most low budget, made for TV. Like, you can see the little black lines around her almost. It's so bad. It's like the pixie dust looks like, that's a cool effect you got from Adobe Premiere. Like, it's so bad. And when they're flying, the velocities don't make sense. The velocities are weird. 1 minute, they're kind of gliding along and it seems real. But then the next minute, they fly like Superman. Like they're going to ignite the atmosphere. They're going so fast. I'm like, well, that wouldn't make sense unless you're Superman and you're indestructible. The, early 20th century London, which I always love to see, by the way, because I'm a huge historical buff and I love the late 19th and early 20th century aesthetic. I just love seeing that era of London, the kind of when horses were slowly being replaced by cars. That's just one of my favorite kind of eras in terms of the aesthetic. And so seeing London as that era London was really fun, except that it looked like the background in a video game. It literally looked like it was rendered in a video game, and the characters looked like video game avatars that were just moving across the background is what it literally looks like. And so I'm sorry, I totally went on a tangent there. So back to Wendy, who is, what is the worst part of this movie? I can't even call it. I can't even call it. But she might be the worst part of it. She might be the worst part of this movie. They went and found this young actress, who is one of the most bratty, nasty, sourpuss actors I've ever seen. She is the most unappealing, unlikable. Every minute she's on screen, she's got this. She's nasty. You know, to quote a former president, she's a very nasty person. Anyway, so she's and she's nasty to her mom. This is the other thing too. This is the early 20th century in London with an affluent family, and her mother is telling her to pack her things for college. For college. Yeah, women did go to college back then. That's not what I'm laughing at. They did, but of course she's going to college because, she don't need no man. She's a career girl, right? She's going to the big city. She doesn't want to go, which is confusing. The plot is confused because on the one hand, she doesn't want to grow up. On the other hand, she doesn't want to have to rely on anyone. And her dream is to be a career woman in the future. That's her happy thought, which is pretty depressing. And, so her mother's like, go pack for college. And she's like, I heard you the first time, mother. And I'm like, this is how a early 21st century child speaks to their parents. This is how a Gen Z child speaks to her parents. This is not how an early 20th century London child speaks to her affluent parents. Like that, it's unbelievable to me. And a lot of shows do this, I've noticed. A lot of shows have characters speaking to their parents or speaking in ways that are very, very much how people would speak today. It's like, no, that is not how you would talk back then. Like, you'd get your ass slapped. Speaking of getting your ass slapped, there is a moment in this movie where Peter Pan has just rescued everyone, and Wendy, he says, he says, yeah, he's like, hi, Wendy. How did that went really well, didn't it? And she just hauled off, and she winds up like a freaking baseball pitcher, winds up and just bitch slaps this kid. He goes down. And and then what they do, they cut away. They cut away from the scene. They don't even show his reaction. He just goes down, and then they cut away. And then he's kind of following her. And he's mumbling something about, well, why did you, but why? Why did you hit me? Why did you slap me? It's just because you got us into trouble. Oh, oh God, it was killing me. It was killing me to watch this. I was like, okay, Captain, will make a confession. In the last, I would say 40 minutes of it, I started skipping a couple, once it would get to a fight scene, I started skipping 10 seconds at a time. Yeah. Okay, someone's talking. All right, cool. And I'll skip. And the one thing I kind of liked was the ship looked cool. I like the pirate ship was neat. Who cares? And Disney can know, and let's return now, my dear sailors and starnuts, to the subject, the theme for this captain's cast, which is the inability of modern writers to commit to the concept of good versus evil. They're uncomfortable with it. Why? Because they are the industry that gave us Harvey Weinstein, and they know it. And they are the industry that gives us drag shows for children. They are the industry that gives us all manner of human depravity. They are the industry that tweets relentlessly with incitements to violence while decrying words as violence. And so because of this, the guilty, there is a line in the Pope's Exorcist, which we'll get to later, which is, your sins will... Oh, shit, what was the line? It was pretty good. It was your sins will find you, or something like that. I kind of like that line. It was your sins will find you out, or something. I think that we have a lot of guilty consciences in Hollywood, and I think that's why they're uncomfortable with the idea that anyone is completely bad. I was watching this YouTube video last year, I remember, and it was a video by a former police detective. And it's a video that's aimed at businesses, how to detect lies in your business, how to deal with employees that are stealing from you, things like that. Or just whatever. In a civilian situation, if you have someone in your life, in like a business environment or whatever, and you suspect they've stolen something or whatever, how do you get them to cough it up? And he said this is basically what he does with suspects, right? And he says, don't just ask them, did you do it? Because they'll deny it, right? That's how it's going to be. He said, but the guilty, there's other ways to get at it, right? And so he said, so let's say you suspect an employee of having stolen from you. I'm like, okay. Invite the 3 employees that had the opportunity to steal from you, interview each of them one by one, and you're going to position it as you don't think that they did it. You're like, oh, I'm not saying you did it, but I do want to get your side of this and find out, what do you know, and et cetera, et cetera. And what you're going to say is now, if I were to find the person who did this, what do you think should happen to them? Now, this is a very important question because you're not asking, if I found out you did it, what do you think I should do to you? It's like, no, I don't suspect you. But if I were to find the thief, what do you think should happen to them? And he said, now, innocent people will reply with things like, oh, they should be fired, they should be arrested, you should call the police, and hopefully they go to jail. It's like, that's what an innocent person will say. But a guilty person will usually start making excuses for the hypothetical thief and say something like, well, I mean, it would depend on the reasons why they stole it, but definitely, I mean, yeah, there should be consequences, but I would hope that they got, that their side was heard, and, probably they should be fired. In other words, they try to reduce the sentence. Why? Because they're guilty. They're guilty. Guilty! Guilty. And that is my theory about why a lot of these Hollywood writers are unable to write evil characters. Because in a way, it's like in their own subconscious mind, they're thinking, well, if this character is bad for doing these things, then they deserve this fate. But they don't want to say that, because then that would mean that they are guilty. Which, I admit, might be a bit of pedantic reasoning on my part. But that being said, it is my show, and the captain has decided to allow it. And so that brings me to Captain Hook in Peter Pan, because you have this. They ruin Maleficent. Maleficent is my favorite character in the original animated stories. Like, I love that character. She's this kind of sexy, scary, just vicious as hell witch, and she's just gonna take out, the kingdom. She's even got devil horns, which is fantastic because she's scary and she's powerful. And and I love villains. And she's one of my favorite. And the voice that did her was amazing. Now, they come out with this Angelina Jolie piece of trash, and they basically do, this started with the book Wicked, where they had to give a tragic backstory to every villain, and they give Maleficent this tragic backstory where she was the victim and the king was the bad guy. And I'm thinking, there are so many better ways to give an interesting backstory to Maleficent. Like, what if she was the court magician or she was the court sorceress and the king found out she was up to no good and he fired her and that's why she was angry? See, that would be more interesting. But no, it had to be that she was a sad, oppressed character and misunderstood, and so she's not really the bad guy. So I absolutely despise those movies, the Maleficent movies. They've done this basically in all of these new live action updates. They've done this with every single one of them. I wouldn't be surprised. I know I interrupt myself. They've done this with every single one of these villains. And I wouldn't be surprised if they do this with Ursula in the new Little Mermaid movie. But they did this with Hook. They basically said, well, we have to give Hook a tragic backstory. And so the tragic backstory is that he was a lost boy. And not just any lost boy. He was Peter Pan's best friend. And he missed his mother. And Peter Pan did not like that. Nope, not one bit. And so when Hook said, I'm going to find my mother, Peter Pan just excoriated him and browbeat him and said, no, there's no missing your mother on my watch. And so Hook, little James ran away. And he fell back to the real world. And some pirates picked him up and they raised him. And then he became their captain. And then one day he missed Peter Pan. And so he sailed back to Neverland. But Peter Pan was mad at him because there's literally a line in this movie where Peter Pan he says, Hook is evil. Hook is evil. And Wendy says, is he evil or is it just that you don't like he's grown up? And Peter Pan's reply is, what's the difference? Holy shit! He's basically saying if you've grown up, you're evil. And you deserve to die. You're a pirate. You're evil. And he doesn't say it with like, oh, pirate. We don't like adults around here. No, it's like you are evil because he's literally saying to grow up is to become evil. I shit you not. And so Hook comes back and he says, oh, Peter, my old chum, my old buddy boy. And Peter Pan says, oh, you're evil now. And they fight. Peter cuts off his hand and it gets fed to a crocodile. And so now they're enemies, they're rivals, they're arch rivals. And so the whole movie is sort of about how Hook is sad. He's really sad. And he's angry. He's angry. And, they should have gender swapped him. I wish they had just had, do it, you cowards. Gender swap Hook. It would have been perfect. You could have even made it that it was his toxic masculinity. You would have had it would have been a double. Oh, they missed an opportunity there. But anyway, no, but, white man bad also is helpful. So, yeah, what's a woke writer to do? So, Hook and Peter have this conversation in their final duel, in which Peter basically has learned his lesson. So Peter's arc in this movie is to learn that growing up does not really make you evil, and it was bad what he did to Hook, and maybe he should forgive him. And so he forgives Hook, and there is this cringe, just basic bitch line where Hook is like, no, I need you to fight me. I need you to fight me. And I'm like, oh, God, who farted? This movie's so good. And so then Peter Pan, they become friends in that moment again, and they forgive each other. But then Hook falls to his death. He's not really dead, of course. We know he's not dead. But he falls to, they're on a ship that's floating above the sea. I'm sorry, I shouldn't even bother describing it. But they're floating above the sea, and he falls down into the ocean. And so, Hook died. But just before he falls, Peter gives him some pixie dust, right? And says, oh, you could fly. And he says, yeah, go ahead, fly. Just think your happy thought. And Jude Law, with just the saddest eyes you've ever seen, just looks at him and says, but Peter, I don't have any happy thoughts. And then he just falls to his death. Oh, this movie's so soulless. There are moments in it where I can tell what the writers are sort of trying to do. They're trying to give Wendy a place to go. They're trying to give Peter a place to go. They're trying to give Hook a little more nuance to his character. And what it comes out as is just soulless, mean-spirited, hateful. Wendy, this whole movie, she is cold. And that's the word. That is the word that I would use to sum it all up. It's cold. It's lifeless. It's, the character of Wendy in the animated film is warm. She's warm. She's loving. She's caring. She is a leader also, but the woke are so blinded by their insanity, they can't see that. But she's a leader. She's an inspirational figure. She's a mother figure. And in this movie, there's literally a line where one of the lost boys and girls says, one of the lost non-binaries, says to Wendy, will you be our mother? And she says, well, I don't even know if I want to be a mother. I'm like, oh, well, you know what, ladies, like, if that's the future you want, you're not mothers, you live alone, you have a career, look, I'm not going to stand in your way, have at it. What is this feminist obsession with imagining that men just spend all day long just thinking of how angry they are that women have opportunities and women get to go to work and screw women for getting to read? It's like, dude, we're not even complicated enough for that. We don't even think about it. Like, who cares? Like, they're obsessed with, this is why I think The Handmaid's Tale is so funny. Listen to me. Here comes a hot take. Are you ready for this? The Handmaid's Tale. Listen to me. The Handmaid's Tale is a female fantasy. Oh, I'm going to get in trouble for that. Hear me out. I'm not saying it's the kind of fantasy where it's like, I want this to become true, because there's that kind of fantasy. Absolutely. There's that kind of fantasy. I want this to be true. There's another type of fantasy, which is a kind of how can I put this? And all humans do this, by the way. A kind of masochistic fantasy in which you sort of imagine the worst case scenario happening to you and you get a kind of thrill from it. You know, you just get a kind of thrill. And it's like, and you're just taking that to its farthest depth. It's like, oh my God, you know. And I feel like this is what this is. This is like they are fantasizing about what they view as sort of a worst case scenario with men, right? And what I find funny about it is the implication is that men are just dreaming of this day. Like men are just waiting for the day they can put all the women in those handmaids outfits and just, you know, the little bonnets and just be ordering them around. Like we can't wait. We can't wait till the day this happens. And it's like, no, we don't. This is you fantasizing about this. What man has envisioned this world? Like, it's just, you know, I'm not saying male chauvinism doesn't exist. Don't misunderstand. Of course it exists. But I'm just saying, even in the case of actual male chauvinism, this is not how men think. Like, this is not... Like, men are simple creatures, okay? There's certain things we want, and we have a naturally more aggressive instinct. A naturally more aggressive instinct. So we tend more towards power. Right? You know, actual conquest, things like that. So that's just that is the nature, right? But that does not mean we sit around thinking about the day we can have handmaids. Like, it's so stupid. The Handmaid's Tale is a female. That's a product of, you know, and there's nothing wrong with that. You know, there's nothing wrong. Superheroes, to be fair, superheroes are a male fantasy. Absolutely. Superheroes are a male power fantasy, and I'm here for it. There's nothing wrong with that. You know, men fantasize about swooping down and catching the falling woman like Superman, and now she's in love with him. I remember as a child, like, I fantasized about that all the time. And it's like, I don't think women really think exactly that way. They don't think, oh, the day that a man catches me, I'm going to be so happy. It's like, no, they don't sit around thinking about that. That's a male thing. That's a male thing to think about, oh, you know, she'd be so impressed if I could do that, right? Now, that doesn't mean she wouldn't be, but, you know, that's neither here nor there. Starfury says, I don't advocate for AI scripts. I just wish writers went back to writing basics and doing classic writing and not this modern crap. I do too. Iron Age, hail the Iron Age. Starfury, the fact that the writers can't see how poor their writing is gives credence to the rise of ChatGPT scripts. Now, listen, I got to tell you something. I've been using ChatGPT in my writing. Now, here's how I use it. I love a good sounding board, and I would prefer to do this with a human writer, and when I can, I do. But sometimes I'm just sitting at my computer, and I'm like, you know, I need some ideas for planets or something. And I'm just like, ChatGPT, give me some examples of planets that fit these characteristics. And it starts printing them out. And you know what it is? It's a writer's prompt. It's a prompt, because I'll tell you something about ChatGPT. It's pretty basic. Like, there's some things it'll spit out that are kind of amazing. You're like, wow, that's pretty cool. But most of what it prints out is just basic. It's just like, yeah, you could literally find this anywhere on the internet with a Google search. It's just kind of putting it in one place, and it puts it together in like sentences, which looks really impressive. But really, look, if you think you can become a successful writer with ChatGPT doing all the work for you, go for it. I'm not going to stand in your way. I will stake my talent against an AI any day, and I will be soon. More on that in the future. Hit that like button if you haven't already. Turn on that notification bell. Subscribe if you haven't already. Your dear captain would appreciate it. Would appreciate it greatly. But what I will use ChatGPT for is inspiration, like prompts, a sounding board. Like for example, this is literally a question I put in. If a planet were freezing, like a freezing planet were orbiting a star, what type of star might it be orbiting? And the ChatGPT kind of spit out some ideas. Half of them were junk that I couldn't use. But like there was like one that was like, oh, it would be at the edge of the habitable zone of like a main sequence star. And I was like, oh, that's kind of cool. Yeah, I like that. Edge of the habitable zone. Like that's the way to use ChatGPT. And it's a sounding board. It's a way to sort of bounce ideas off of something, and you don't need a person there to do it. That being said, whenever I have had a human sounding board, it's 100 times better. It's 100 times better. So we're a long way from ChatGPT. But I will tell you, The kind of writing that you see in these shows these days, like Peter Pan, it is like what ChatGPT spits out. It really is. Like, I'm not claiming that they're writing it with ChatGPT. I am claiming their skill level is at least on par to where it's indistinguishable from ChatGPT. Eric Mar says, I was about to ask you who was your favorite character. If by favorite, you mean my least favorite in Peter Pan and Wendy, who was the worst character in this movie? It was Peter Pan. Peter Pan was the worst character in this. I mean, unbelievable. This was as opposite of Peter Pan as you can get. It's not possible to find a more scrawny, lifeless, low energy, weird looking kid to play this character that had no energy, no charisma. Peter Pan is supposed to be a dashing, daring do hero. He's a leader. He's an inspiration that towers above the Lost Boys. It's absurd that this kid could play that part. He can't. And look, I would never want to say anything hurtful to that kid. He's just a kid. He's got a job to do. It's fine. You know, I feel like with criticism, you know, kids are kind of off limits. You know, once they're an adult, yeah, they can handle it. But like, yeah, obviously I would never want to be mean to him personally. He's just doing, and look, a lot of the failure was the creatives that put him in that role that he wasn't ready for. He wasn't ready for it. So it's really the adult's fault that he was so bad in this movie. And honestly, it shows you just how bad propaganda, aka woke storytelling, is. Because in propaganda, it doesn't matter. Craftsmanship does not matter. And that would explain why you have a character that would never have been cast for this part, ever. There's only one reason he was cast, because of his race. That is the only reason. They cast him because they wanted to race swap him. And it shows, because he has no talent. He has zero talent. He can't play this part. He could have barely played a Lost Boy, frankly. Oh, and some of the Lost Boys are girls. Oh, whatever. Fuck off, Disney. It's amazing how they're like, you know, what is it? What is it that the feminazis really want? Like, what is the end game here? What do you want? How much revenge is enough for you? How much revenge? How many things do you get to take away from men to where you're finally happy? You shrill harpies. Honest to God. Like, look, I don't care. You know, ruin as many franchises as you want. I'm doing my own thing. And it's going to beat your things. Let me promise you that. I'm fine with competition. You're the ones that aren't. And my only, and this is purely a question of curiosity. There's no malice or anger in this at all. Just how much revenge is enough for you? When will it fill that hole that you're trying to fill with all this garbage of like, oh, you know, I could be a girl in the Lost Boys too. It's like, just what? How much revision is necessary for you to feel happy? Because that's all we want. I just want you to be happy. I want every human to be happy. Starfury says, there is not enough revenge for the shrill harpies. No, there's not. Well, that's the nature of revenge, though. That's why revenge is so destructive. It's like there's never enough revenge to fill that hole. You know, it makes you feel better for a little while, but then that feeling wears off and you need another hit. And so anyhow. All right, my dear sailors of Starnauts, enough of Peter Pan. Enough of that. Let's do something else. Let's do something else. We're going to check out a trailer here.
This is a national emergency.
Detonator charged.
We're in a race against the Nazis. And I know what it means if the Nazis have a bomb.
We have a 12-month head start.
18.
How could you possibly know that?
We've got one hope. All America's industrial might and scientific innovation connected here.
Okay, just one sec. How does Cillian Murphy do this? He's one of my favorite actors. How does he sound so powerful while he's just saying something really kind of, all of America's scientists gathered in one place. Like, the way he says that is like a way that no other actor could say it. I don't know how to explain it. It's just incredible. Like, it gives me chills the way he delivers every line in this trailer. It's unbelievable.
Secret laboratory. Keep everyone there until it's done.
Let's go recruit some scientists.
Build a town, build it fast. If we don't let scientists bring their families, we'll never get the best.
Why would we go to the middle of nowhere for who knows how long?
Why? Why? How about because this is the most important thing to ever happen in the history of the world?
You're the great improviser, but this you can't do in your head.
Are we saying there's a chance that when we push that button, we destroy the world?
Chances are near zero.
Near zero.
What do you want from theory alone?
0 would be nice.
This is a matter of life and death. But I can perform this miracle.
World War II would be over. Our boys would come home.
That's happening, isn't it?
The world will remember this day. Our work here will ensure a peace mankind has never seen. Until somebody builds a bigger one.
You are the man who gave them the power to destroy themselves. And the world is not prepared. 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3.
Truman needs to know what's next.
2,
What's next?
1.
Oh, I'm so seeing that in IMAX. Oh my God. You go through all this woke garbage. You go with Peter Pan and Wendy and, Ant-Man and the Wasp Quantumania. And then you see a trailer like that and you remember what real filmmaking is. You see a trailer like that and it gives you chills. And it just like you like, and you can't even take your eyes off of it. It's like, then you remember what the real craftsman can do. Then you remember what a real writer, director, actor can do. It's incredible. So Christopher Nolan, and look, he's had a couple misses lately. So I get a little nervous with Christopher Nolan these days because it looks good. It looks really good. But Tenet was awful. It was awful. And I thought it was going to be great, and it was not. But I will say this for Christopher Nolan, like, it is incredible to me that he was able to recreate an atomic bomb detonation with practical effects. That is going to be worth the ticket price alone, right there. And what also, so I am a huge fan of the Manhattan Project history and World War II history, and so I know a fair bit about it, and I will just tell you, every line in that trailer is deadly accurate. Like, every line in that trailer is so accurate to history. That's part of what gives me chills. It's like, holy crap, that's exactly what happened. Like the moment when Matt Damon, who's playing the general that was in charge of the Manhattan Project, his name escapes me at the moment, when he says, are you telling me? Now, obviously, the way this was staged was a little bit more dramatic than probably the conversation went in real life. But basically, he said, are you telling me that if we push that button, there's a chance we could destroy the world? And he's like, what do you want from me? It's like that. What actually happened was there were a couple of scientists who were aware that there was something like a 2% chance in their calculations that the heat from the blast would be enough to ignite the Earth's atmosphere. And if that had happened, it would have literally, within seconds, incinerated all of the atmosphere of the planet in a giant fireball, and that would have been it. And all that would have been left was a cinder. just a lifeless dead rock in space. And that is basically, there was like a 2% chance that and by the way, the Nazis knew this too, because Heisenberg, who was working on their program, which never really went that far. That may be the one historical inaccuracy, but I'm okay with it because it's Oppenheimer saying it, and he probably did believe that. When he says the Nazis have an 18 months head start on us, it's like, well, in real life, their program never got very far. Part of it was because they got rid of all the Jewish scientists. They got rid of any scientists. In fact, they even accused Heisenberg, who was their only scientist capable of building one. They accused him of being a homosexual and a Jew. And he had to talk his way out of it with the Gestapo. So they were this is why I say good has a slight advantage over evil, because evil is so self-destructive. And so in any case, their own racism prevented them from ever getting very far in their program. And but they got far enough that Heisenberg was able to inform the Fuhrer that there was this chance in his calculations that it could ignite Earth's atmosphere. And Hitler was quoted as being worried about that and thinking, wow, well, we probably shouldn't do that. But America, we're like, well, we'll try it. Let's just see what happens. Anyway, I digress. So the scientists that identified this went to the general, who's in this case being played by Matt Damon, and basically said, hey, there is this chance. And Oppenheimer was aware of it, and they had this conversation, and they thought about it, and the general was worried about it, but they were able to reliably agree in their calculations it was very, very, very unlikely that they would kill the whole world when they pushed that button. That is not the kind of odds you really want in that sort of proposition. So, yeah, look, our species is a bit insane. Let's just admit it. Like, we're a bit absolutely crazy. Like, let's just face it. Doesn't matter who you are. We're a little insane. Let me just... I have a passage I want to read to you from a book about this, too. But let me see what the chat is saying on this. Arigmar says gravitas, speaking of Cillian Murphy. Peaky Blinders is freaking amazing. I love that show. I absolutely love him in that show. It's better than Boardwalk Empire, I think, because it's a little more fun than Boardwalk Empire. It definitely plays a little faster and looser with the history, which, but it kind of knows what it is, and I'm cool with it. Yeah, Star Fury points out the line about how he says, miracle is the right word in hindsight. Yeah, it's like, I can perform this miracle. Man, the way he says his lines, he's got the kind of North Atlantic accent going on, like it's an old movie, but it's somehow more real the way he does it. I can perform this miracle. Like Oppenheimer, I'm so excited for this. He really is one of the most incredible, like he's right up there with Alan Turing in terms of, Think about this, right? We knew that this was possible theoretically, because the atomic bomb had been theorized for decades, at least I think a decade or so, before we actually undertook to build one. And so it was known in the scientific community around the world that this was possible theoretically, but no one had ever demonstrated in a laboratory environment anything close to a nuclear reaction yet. And so the U.S. government, having no way of knowing if the Nazis were working on one or how far they were on, could only surmise that the scientist counterparts in Germany must have known, and they were right about this, must have known this was possible and were working on it. And they just had to assume that they were working on it. Like, well, what are we going to do? Well, we have to build one before they do. And so the United States government basically set up two laboratories, one in, I want to say, Washington, and one in Los Alamos, if I'm not mistaken. The Los Alamos one is where Oppenheimer is. And basically there were two possible theories about how to build a bomb. There was the gun-style weapon, which would use plutonium, which would basically fire a charge into the plutonium to create the critical mass. And then there was the Fat Man version, which was basically you surround a ball of uranium with a bunch of explosives and you create an implosion, which compresses the nuclear fuel and ignites the nuclear reaction, right? And we said, so there's two ways we could maybe do this. Which one should we do? And this is how powerful the United States economy was at the time. At a time when Germany was struggling with fuel shortages and food shortages for their army, the United States government said, build both. And so they set up 2 laboratories, one at Los Alamos, one in Washington, and they started working on both of them. That's why we got 2. We got the fat man and the little boy, because we just said, you know what? See if you can build either one. And they succeeded, right? So I find that very fascinating. So anyway, I just wanted to read to you. There is a book, a really good book. It's called The Doomsday Machine. And it's by, so I forget, it's by, forgive me, I have to, Daniel Ellsberg. So he worked for years. He was actually the guy who released, I think, the Pentagon Papers. He's kind of famous for that. He had just been in, yeah, let's face it, he's kind of a deep stater. But he has been in the halls of power dealing with nuclear bomb issues like his whole life. And so he wrote this book about the conundrum that we face with nuclear weapons. And I can tell that I probably would not agree with a lot of his politics. But that being said, I highly respect his book. And I think it's a really good book. It's called The Doomsday Machine. And he approaches it with a very, I think, apolitical attitude. He definitely, you could tell, he has his attitudes about things, but mostly they revolve around what he considers the threat to humanity, which is the nuclear bomb. And so this is what he writes. If I can find it. In a 9th grade social studies class in the fall of 1944, I was 13, a boarding student on full scholarship at Cranbrook, a private school in Bloomfield Hills, Michigan. Our teacher, Bradley Patterson, was discussing a concept that was familiar then in sociology, William F. Ogburn's notion of cultural lag. The idea was that the development of technology regularly moved much faster than other aspects of culture, our institutions of government, hello AI, values, habits, ethics, and understanding of society and ourselves. Indeed, the very notion of progress referred mainly to technology. What lagged behind, what developed more slowly or not at all, was everything that bore on our ability to direct technology and to control it wisely, ethically, prudently. To illustrate this, Mr. Patterson posed a potential advance in technology that might soon be realized. It was possible now, he told us, to conceive of a bomb made of U-235, an isotope of uranium, which would have an explosive power 1,000 times greater than the largest bombs being used in the present war. German scientists in late 1938 had discovered that uranium could be split by nuclear fission in a way that would release immense amounts of energy. Several popular articles about the possibility of atomic bombs, and specifically U-235 bombs, appeared during the war in journals like the Saturday Evening Post and some sci-fi magazines. Though each of these articles led to secret investigations of security breaches within the Manhattan Project, whose existence was top secret, none of them actually represented leaks. In every case, it turned out that they had been inspired by earlier articles on the subject that had been published freely in 1939 and 1940 before scientific self-censorship and then formal classification had set in. So think of this. So the Manhattan Project is going on and the public knows it exists, but like there were no leaks. Nobody found out what they were working on. Like it was totally top secret. And so people were using old articles to write science fiction stories about someone getting in and finding out what they're doing. That's incredible. Like, I don't think we could ever achieve that again. He brought the potential development to us as an example of one more possible leap by science and technology that was ahead of our social institutions. Suppose, then, that one nation, or several, chose to explore the possibility of making this uranium isotope into a bomb and succeeded. What would be the probable implications of this for humanity? How would it be used by humans and states as they were today? Would it be, on balance, bad or good for the world? Would it be a force for peace, for example, or for destruction? We were to write a short essay on this due in a week's time. I recall the conclusions I came to in my paper after thinking about it for a few days. As I remember, everyone in the class had arrived at pretty much the same judgment. It seemed pretty obvious. The existence of such a bomb would be bad news for humanity. Mankind could not handle such a destructive force. It could not be safely controlled. The power would be abused. That is, used dangerously, with terrible consequences. A bomb like that was just too powerful. Bad enough that bombs already existed that could destroy a whole city block. They were called blockbusters, 10 to 20 tons of high explosive. Humanity didn't need the prospect of bombs 1,000 times more powerful. Single bombs that could destroy whole cities. Civilization, perhaps our species, would be in danger of destruction. As I recall, this conclusion didn't depend mainly on who had the bomb or how many had it or who got it first. It would be a bad development, on balance, even if democratic countries got it first. After we turned in our papers and discussed them in class, it was many months before I thought of the issues again. I remember the moment when I did. It was a hot August day in Detroit. I was standing on a downtown street corner, looking at the front page of the Detroit News in a news rack. A streetcar rattled by on the tracks as I read the headline. A single American bomb had destroyed a Japanese city. My first thought, I know exactly what that bomb was. It was the U-235 bomb we had discussed in school and written papers about the previous fall. I thought, we got it first, and we used it on a city. I had a sense of dread, a feeling that something very dangerous for humanity had just happened, a feeling new to me as an American at 14 that my country might have made a terrible mistake. I was glad when the war ended 9 days later, but it didn't make me think that my first reaction on August 6th was wrong. I felt uneasy in the days ahead about the triumphal tone in Harry Truman's voice on the radio, flat and Midwestern as always, but unusually celebratory, as he exulted over our success in the race for the bomb and its effectiveness over Japan. This suggested, for me, that our leaders didn't have the full picture, didn't grasp the significance of the precedent they had set and the sinister implications for the future. Unlikely thoughts for a 14-year-old American boy to have had the week the war ended? Yes, if it hadn't been in Mr. Patterson's social studies class the previous fall. All members of that class must have had the same flash of recognition of the bomb as they read that August headline during our summer vacation. So anyhow, yeah, that is Hat Tip, The Doomsday Machine by Daniel Ellisberg. It is a great book. I highly recommend it. That's from the beginning of it. And that observation, I know exactly what that bomb was. And not only did we build it, we used it on a city. Imagine that revelation. Now, look, am I sitting here saying we shouldn't have used it on Hiroshima and Japan? No, because I think that would be easy for me to say. That would be easy for me to say, sitting in the comfort of a peaceful society whose freedom was secured through the use of that weapon. But that does not change the fact that there was a world before the bomb, and now there is a world after. And we live in that world. And I can tell you which world I would prefer to live in. And that is not the world with the bomb. And now we've got the AI around the corner. So, that almost reassures me. It's like, oh, don't worry about the nuclear bomb anymore. We got something worse coming that's going to happen. No, okay, I'm sorry. I'm not trying to be a downer. Anyway, that's why I'm so excited about this film, because it just feels like it's got the weight. It's got the full implications of it. I'm excited. So what do you think in the chat? Star Fury says, Christopher Nolan, another banger. I always wanted a Manhattan Project set in the sci-fi context with the enemy as aliens. Well, of course, Star Fury. Well, maybe we'll get that one too. I'm okay with that. That could be fun. Fu Man Blue says, interesting, Star Fury. Star Fury says, as Captain says, the Manhattan Project is such a compelling story. Not insane, just meaning humans, just unrelenting when our backs are against the wall. Yeah. Well, let me ask you a question, Star Fury. Let me just put it to you this way. I take your point, and you may be right here. But think of the proposition of mutually assured destruction that we had in the Cold War. And we literally had a situation in the 80s where there was something like 50,000 weapons stockpiled on our side. That would be the Allies, UK, United States, etc., France. And then on the Soviet side, they had stockpiled something like 70,000 weapons. And just so you understand, these are not atomic bombs. These are thermonuclear fusion bombs, which means that the modern weapons, what would have been an atomic bomb back in 1945, that is the detonator for a fusion bomb, which is like 1,000 times bigger than an atomic bomb. That's what we had 70,000 on each side of, right? And what was the proposition? The proposition was, if you launch yours, we'll launch ours, and we all lose. Like, think about that. Like, that's insane. Like, now, am I saying we should surrender? No. Which means I'm acknowledging I'm as insane as the rest of my species, so I'm not denying that. Because no, I'm not willing to sacrifice my freedom to the Soviet. I'm not willing to let the Soviets just march over the border and put us all in the gulag because we're not willing to fire our weapons. On the other hand, I recognize that like there's no winning scenario there. Like if it goes to that, it's over. It's over. It's just over for all of us. So, and maybe our descendants 2,000 years after that event might rebuild something, from the rubble. But, I love Fallout, by the way. Hail Fallout, great series. Love playing me some Fallout if it ever could not glitch. Bethesda, what a shit company. Anyway, I digress. So I'm just saying, like, even though it's kind of understandable the positions both sides have in the proposition of mutually assured destruction, and there were benefits to it. We couldn't really get involved in direct wars. I mean, I guess until now. Now I guess we can. I guess we can get involved in direct wars with nuclear armed powers. Like, what a weird timeline. So weird. I don't even understand. It's bizarre to me. But anyway, so now we can get in wars with nuclear armed powers, and that's just fine. But for a long time, that was like off the table. It was off the table. We could not get involved in an armed conflict with Russia. We just couldn't. Because if we did, we knew it was over for both of us, because there was nowhere for that to go. That wasn't going to be the end of all humanity. And so I'm just saying that's insane. Like, that's insane. It doesn't matter the reasons. We all lose, regardless of who's right and who's wrong. That's my only point. Tom says, all the details of the circumstances that ended with us dropping the bomb are really interesting. There's a good video, Dropping the Bomb, Hiroshima and Nagasaki by YouTuber Sean. Yeah, hat tip YouTuber Sean. Check that out. It is really fascinating. And one of the interesting things about it, too, is it was a more... Yeah, read The Doomsday Machine. It's very fascinating. He kind of breaks down that, like, the idea that, like, it's the president that has the finger on the nuclear button is a total myth. Like, we think of it like this. We think of it like, oh, Mr. President, will you authorize the use of nuclear weapons, Mr. President? Yes, I will. I will weigh this heavily, and I will either authorize or not authorize. And there is that element. Like, the president is the commander-in-chief of the armed forces, and therefore does have that authority. However, what if it's not possible to leave that authority only with the president? You can't have that authority resting only with the president, because if you do, then the enemy knows that all they have to do is take out the president, and you can't fire your nukes, and you've lost. So obviously, that has never been the case. There is a complicated, like, multi-layered military command authority that grants authority to individual military commanders, generals, etc., to fire their nukes without the president's direct approval. Like, that is possible. There are scenarios where, watch the movie Crimson Tide, which hat tip Jeremy over at CobraCast reminded me about Crimson Tide recently. Great movie. Gene Hackman, Denzel Washington, excellent movie, especially if you love the Cold War, nuclear war type stuff. Definitely Crimson Tide. It's a nautical movie. The captain approves. It's an excellent nautical movie. Maybe we'll do like just a fun review or something. But like, one of the points of that movie is that literally Gene Hackman's captain of that submarine, he winds up being unable to contact the chain of command, and their last command was fire your nukes. And the whole conflict in the film is, do we go back up to broadcast depth to find out if that order is accurate or not? And essentially, the captain is saying, no, we're not going up to broadcast depth. We're executing our orders. We're firing those nukes. And it's fascinating because it's like, yeah, that scenario exists all throughout the military. Like, so it is possible. So, yeah. What? Well, you know what? I may have just torpedoed my whole show. Like, everyone's like, oh my God. Oh no. I don't want... So I'm not trying to scare you. Hey, we're still here. We're still here. There's actually a great movie called 13 Days with Kevin Costner about the Cuban Missile Crisis. Really good. And there's a great line in that movie where Kevin Costner, who I believe he's either, I forget who he's playing. I don't think he's playing Bobby Kennedy in that movie. But anyway, he's in the inner circle. And he says, he like the sun has just come up and he's having breakfast with his wife and his kids. And they've just come out of the Cuban Missile Crisis. And he's like, you know, every time we see a sunrise, it says something about us, meaning humanity. And I was like, see, I like that. We've had plenty of chances to blow ourselves up, and we haven't done it yet. So maybe we're just this side of sane. Maybe. Which, by the way, gives me hope for AI as well. Because when you think about it, the fears we have about AI are exactly the kind of fears that people in the 30s and 40s had about the bomb, right? It's like, oh, if we ever invent this thing, it's over. Like, it's over for us. And that was the fear. And we have that fear now about AI. And it's like, well, it's encouraging to me that maybe we're wrong about that. So there you go. I turned it all around. The captain is nothing if not an optimist. Never let it be said. What else we got? You know what? I saw Sisu. Sisu is a great movie. Okay, we got to talk about Sisu. Let's see here. Starfury says, I want my starship, or at least a jetpack. I want one too. Okay, well, let's take a look. Let's talk about Sisu. So I want to take a look at the trailer. I want to give you my thoughts on this movie because I got one good one coming up, which is Oppenheimer. And we got one good one that's in the theaters if you haven't had a chance to see it. So I will be right back and we will talk Sisu. And we're back on this edition of the Captain's Cast on Swords and Starships Channel on YouTube. Please do like and subscribe. Hit that notification bell. I am your host, Captain Garrett, and we are here today talking about all things sci-fi, fantasy, historical fiction. We're having a great old time, aren't we? Aren't we, chat? So let's... oh, yes, I have a video for you. I have a video. So we did Oppenheimer. Boy, that's going to be a barn burner. This would be Sisu.
We're rich, boys.
Get down on your knees.
Fuck him up! We got gold!
This movie.
He was a Finnish commando. Lost his home and his family in the war. He became a one-man death squad. He's one mean motherfucker that you do not want to mess with.
Fire!
You'll see what happens when you take everything from him.
Do you really believe that he's immortal?
No, he just refuses to die.
How many mines did we bury here?
All of them.
You? And you?
This is not about who's the strongest. This is about not giving up. We have a word for that in Finland.
Sisu! We might have a problem.
Yeah? Yeah, what do you think? So I watched this movie. Well, okay, so I saw the trailer in the theater, and there were two things that worried me. Two things. The line, the little tagline there, where it's like the most fun you'll have watching Nazis get destroyed. So that was a red flag. And then the second red flag is the line of girls just like walking with machine guns. Total. It was like the "she's got help" moment in Endgame, and I'm like, oh, here we go. And so I'm thinking too that there's one type of evil that the woke are willing to believe in, and that's Nazi evil. It's like, even though they don't even see the similarities, like in the way the Nazis think with racial ideology and the way that they think. It's like two sides of the same coin. But I digress. So look, it's easy. It's easy to make a movie about killing Nazis because it's fun. We all enjoy it. We all get a kick out of it. It's a cheap plot device, is my point, right? Because they're easy villains. They're easy villains to reach for. And so I always get a little bit nervous when I see a movie about it because I just think it's just going to be, it's going to be no substance to it. It's just going to be junk food cinema, right? And I don't know that I would argue this isn't junk food cinema, but it is a hell of a damn good, entertaining piece of junk food cinema if it is, because it was freaking great. And here's what I will tell you about Sisu that I really, I loved every minute of this movie, by the way. I just loved it. There were a couple things that bugged me in it, but it just in terms of like, well, I hesitate to use the word plausibility because it's kind of like John Wick. You sort of know what you're in for with this one. It's like you're not in for the most realistic, grounded kind of movie. But like even within the framework of the movie, there was a thing that was pretty unrealistic in it that I was like, okay, that is even kind of breaking the rules of this movie. But, I will allow it. Captain will allow it. Because it is so damn historically authentic. Like, it is so good. Like, the cinematography is excellent. The score is excellent. The tone never misses a beat. It is grisly. It is dirty. It is the most... One thing I love about it, right? So this is taking place in 1944. And basically, Germany is retreating on pretty much all fronts at this point. And they're losing. They're losing the war, and most of them have admitted that they're losing the war, even if they won't say it, because they'll get off with their heads. But they are they're doing a fighting retreat. And the German troops were great at this. They were excellent at doing fighting retreats. In other words, they're on the run, but they would make their enemies pay for every inch that they took. I mean, it was just unbelievable. And here's the thing. Everyone, when they think of Nazi war crimes, what do they think of? we all know there's one thing that everyone thinks of. And yes, it is one of the worst things that's ever happened in the history of humanity. But this is the thing. They did so many other terrible things that most people don't even realize. Like, most people don't even realize all the awful things they did. And what I love about this movie is it makes not one reference to the Holocaust. It makes not one reference to Jewish people. And that's not to say that that isn't an important part of it. You know, I love Schindler's List. Schindler's List is one of my favorite films of all time. But my point is, this film chooses as its subject just what was happening in Finland. Nothing else. Just what was happening in Finland. And what is happening in Finland was a perfect example of the kind of atrocities that made the Nazis so hated. Because they were literally just anything that they could burn down, anyone they could murder, anything they could deny. You know, like they would trash ports. Some of that was strategic, right? Don't let the enemy have a port, you know. But they would blow up priceless bridges in Italy that had stood since the Roman Empire. They would deliberately blow up, you know, priceless architecture that was irreplaceable because they just didn't want anyone else to have it. Like, those orders came directly from the top, by the way. And so that's what they're doing in this movie. They are just pillaging their way across Finland, and it's nasty. It's ugly. They pull no punches in this movie about how vicious they are. But at the same time, neither are they totally mustache twirling villains. There's a level of like humanity. I don't mean that in the like sense of like goodness. I just mean they're human. Like, they're human characters with some complexity for the most part. The bad guys and the good guys in this movie. And so they sort of portray, and they also portray the Germans as being absolutely war weary. They're ragged, all their clothes, like the SS officer that's kind of the main baddie in the movie. You know, his leather jacket's got a tear in it. They're dirty. They're filthy. They look like they stink, all of them, which is how the Germans looked at that point in the war. They were short on every supply. They were short on food. They were short on winter clothing. Their lives were hell in the final year of that war, let me tell you. Much worse than the Allies. You know, they were stunned when they saw British, Canadian, and American troops. You know, whenever there's a story about a German soldier that was surrendering to American troops, and he could not believe how clean they looked. They were clean. They were well fed. They had all these nice, new, shiny supplies. You know, the Allies had it made from the German soldiers' perspective. Meanwhile, the Finnish are portrayed as being absolutely being brutalized by this retreat. So it's excellent. Like, it is a great historical piece. It's so, but this is the thing. It is an action movie. It is not a think piece. This is not like a deep film. It is purely about one thing and one thing only. How much can a man take before he gives up? And how many Nazis can he kill? So it's about two things. It's how many Nazis can he kill, and how much punishment can he take before he'll give up? And the title is a clue to the answer. And it is a glorious answer. The main character in this film has no speaking lines. Like, none. There's one speaking line in the whole film, and I won't tell you what it is, but I will just say it's like he doesn't have to speak. That's what's so great about it. He never has to say a word, and you know everything going on. Like, he's just a man trying to get his gold to the bank, and these dang Nazis are in his way. And he is a tough SOB. You're going to love this movie. The kills in this movie are unreal. Like, they showed one in that trailer. So there's this part in the movie, right, where he has fled through a minefield. The name of the character is not Sisu, which it's a little... Sisu's the name of his personality trait. I actually don't even know what the guy's name is. So the guy, the old man, he flees through a minefield, and well, now the Germans are in a pickle because they chased him into it, and now they got to go get him because he's got the gold. And so you saw it in the trailer where it's like, you start walking. And they start walking, and a couple of them get blown up. But then there's this moment where there's this fog, there's like smoke or something, and you just see a mine, as you saw in the trailer, fly out of the mist and just hit the guy right in the head. It's like, it's absolutely glorious. It's like so many moments like that, and I dare you. There's one scene with the main character, and the Nazis have Well, they're trying to make good on their attempt to kill him, and I will just, there is a thing he does to escape danger in this. I'm trying to be as cryptic as possible because I don't want any spoilers, but there is a thing he has to do to escape their clutches in this movie that is so like gory and gross. Well, there's like two things I can think of. Like you probably wouldn't even know what I'm speaking of because there's like two or three things like this, but no, it's something happening to the guy. It's something happening to him. And it's like, I dare you to not look away. So anyway, it's great. It's a great movie. Star Fury says, but they are so good at being villains, meaning not. Yeah, absolutely. I'm with you on this. They are the world's ultimate villains. I would argue so are the Soviets, but that is a story for another day. Junk food is fine in small doses. They had lots of practice at retreating. Yes, they did. Yes, they did. They got the whole world against them at the end. Erigmar says, reminds me of some moments in my books. Well, that is good on you, sir. As it should. 1211 in the chat. Welcome aboard. Uh-oh. Line of girls in that one scene. Oh, yes. Thanks for reminding me. So, yeah, the girl bossery. So, I will just say, in the context of the film, that scene is fine. It's totally fine. In fact, I quite enjoyed that scene. It was a little bit melodramatic the way they film it with all of them walking side by side. But that being said, it was earned. Like, the film had earned it in the plot. Absolutely. And they're not girl bosses, is basically what I'm saying. Like, if you see the film, you'll understand what I mean. Like, in context, it was earned. It was more than earned. So, and that's all I'm asking for. I'm fine with girl bosses. I like girl bosses when they're plausible. When they are plausible. And in this film, they are plausible. That is not to say, though, that the film is definitely going to get points. They're going to get woke points for that because, the wokies, they love that stuff. They're like, oh, girls, oh, they got the machine guns, yay! It's like, okay, fine. But I liked it because it was just about characters that have been sort of at the mercy of the Nazis getting to turn the tables. And I thought that was pretty good. That was pretty good. Star Fury says, he even uses a knife properly. Excellent. Not enough guns. In the film, you think? I think there's guns, there's knives, there's mines, there's bombs, there's like tanks, there's all kinds of shit in this movie. Now I will say there's a little bit of plot armor when it comes to the bullets in this. Like, there are times where there's no, like, you don't. I'm sorry, but when like a 50 caliber machine gun is just unloading in a bullet hose, like it's not even a matter of missing. Like, you're not going to miss because it's a bullet hose. Like, there's just cover the area and you're going to get the guy. So like, there's a couple scenes where he escapes that. And I'm like, no, you wouldn't. That would have cut him in half like 5 different ways because it's just with a gun that big, there's no way. But and there's another thing towards the end of the film that was, I honestly don't even understand what they were trying to say. How he survived. Like, there's a thing he survives towards the end of the film that I honestly, I feel like the film was trying to say this is how he got out of it. But I was like, I don't think so. Like, I'm puzzling over this. I'm like, are you saying that because of that thing, that's why? I don't know if that tracks. So definitely there were some head scratchers. But overall, I mean, look. It's getting a little silly with John Wick holding up the jacket to block bullets. That's getting a little silly. They should find a way to write that out of the story in the next one. I'm just saying. So, but a couple of those I can live with. I can live with a couple of those. Star Fury, hero only speaks at the end. This is how they should have done Master Chief. If they had done Master Chief this way in like the Halo show or maybe a Halo film or something, he could speak a couple times. But if they had done Master Chief this way, oh my god, it would have been a crowd pleaser. It would have been a crowd pleaser. Yes. Erigmar says good night. Good night, sir. Permission to disembark granted. Thank you for joining the Captain's Cast, your premier source for Hollywood news. Should we take a look at, consequence culture? Should we take a look at that? I'm going to pull up some articles here for you. A couple of headlines. A couple of fun things. We're just gonna go through all the wacky woke Hollywood. Wacky bananas woke Hollywood. We're just gonna have some fun. Have some fun with them. You know? By the way, I'm very irritated. Okay. Because I finished The Crown, which is probably not going to be popular in this chat, but I finished The Crown, and it was a letdown. It was a real letdown. The thing I was expecting to happen did not happen. And I'm like, really? A whole nother season of this? I don't know. See, this is why I'm probably going to check out. It's just too slow. This show is just not interesting enough. There's not enough like crazy stuff happening. But the historical side is so interesting, even though it's pretty fictional. Try this headline. Netflix's Queen Cleopatra star Adele James dismisses Egyptian complaints about the docuseries race-swapping the actual historical figure of Cleopatra, who was half Macedonian, that would be Greek. Blackwashing isn't a thing. See, this is why I think that this is a revenge movement, right? Because the door only swings one way. On the one hand, you're saying, why can't we just get over seeing color? Why can't we just get over all this racial stuff and just hire the best person for the job? But on the other hand, but it's okay. It's okay if white people are being judged on the, because it's not possible. It's not possible. If anyone but a white person gets a role, it was for good reasons. And it's not possible that it could ever have been racially motivated. And it's like, see, this is the problem. But, this is what you get when this is the way you think. Oh, oof. Oh, dear. Oh dear. Oh, my God. See, this is what Peter Pan should have looked like, by the way. This is why I say I think Disney's got something else going on. They're greasing the skids because this is an accurate score for Peter Pan and Wendy. But look at that. 11%. I'm a little surprised. Well, there's only 9 reviews. Now, that's interesting. There's only 9 reviews of this. Do you know what this means? This means that a lot of our reviewers are opting out. Dude, that's exactly what that means. So these media, these official media critics, they are the appropriate judges of what is good art. And they are scared to death. They are scared to death to review this film. Do you want to know why? Because it's a damned if you do, damned if you don't. Like there's landmines everywhere with this one. Because on the one hand, if they critique this film basically for any reason, they're anti-black, they're anti-POC characters, they're anti, and so they'd be crossing the wokies. But if they review it and they say, well, it was really pretty good. There were some issues with the historical accuracy, but it was mostly good, and she was good in the role, and representation. Representation is good. Representation is good, and there was a lot of representation in it, and there was so much diversity, and I really, really liked it. Now they're going to piss off all the Egyptian crowd because now all the North African people are going to be like mad at them because they're like, oh, you're whitewashing, you're blackwashing Egyptian culture, you're ruining Egyptian culture, and so they're like, what is a poor establishment critic to do in this situation? Not review it. Nope, I'm not touching it. I'm not touching it. And so the only people that are reviewing it are the people that are like, oh, this sucks. They're like, and the audience, 2,500 ratings, 1%. Who's the one? Who did they find? The one audience member's like, that was pretty good. I really liked it. They've united the internet. And I am here for it. And then you got other fun things like Entertainment Tonight. This is a literal post they made for The Little Mermaid, and they gave a gift to the internet. Can you tell which it is? Can you tell which of these pictures is a wonderful little gift to the internet? This is real. I can't even believe this. Yeah, so people are having fun with this. All the Disney stands crying about the new meme. They're so mad. Halle Bailey, she's beautiful. She really is. I feel, but what's sad is she's caught in the trap, right? She's caught in the trap because she's in the echo chamber, and I don't even want to say echo chamber. She's in that industry, and everyone around her is just prepping her to believe she's a victim and prepping her to believe that all the objections to her being cast is because, her race and they hate her and all this stuff. And it's like, I feel bad for her. When you play woke games, you win woke prizes. And here's a perfect example. Aladdin star Mina Massoud deactivates his Twitter following backlash over the Little Mermaid criticism. Do you want to hear what horrible, mean, nasty, racist, toxic things he said about the Little Mermaid? Well, I'm going to tell you. Early Saturday morning, May 13th. Oh, this is, you can tell how important this news is, right? It's early on a Saturday morning, the year of our Lord, 2023, who starred in Disney's 2019's live-action remake of Aladdin, deleted his social media account after receiving some serious backlash for his tweet criticizing the upcoming Little Mermaid. He says, and I quote, "Our film was unique in that audiences went to watch it multiple times. It's the only way we reached the $1 billion mark with our opening," Mina tweeted. "My guess is The Little Mermaid doesn't cross the $1 billion mark, but will undoubtedly get a sequel." You would have thought that he just shit in their Cheerios, because then the fans, basically, he gets blasted. "Sir, you're being bitter because the movie is doing way better than Aladdin despite it not even being out yet." Another wrote, "I loved Aladdin and literally on the top 5 of my favorite Disney remakes. Being pessimistic on a movie that hasn't been out yet but being praised by critics is just disappointing. I'm so disappointed in you." Mina Massoud being bitter and racist because Aladdin will not be getting a sequel after all, and Little Mermaid is considered the best Disney live-action movie without being officially released. It's like this. What a bastard this guy is. What a monster. What a human. What a piece of shit. You know what? I disavow Mina Massoud. What a racist. What an evil son of a bitch. Our film was unique in that audiences went to watch it multiple times. It's the only way we reached the $1 billion opening. My guess is The Little Mermaid doesn't cross the $1 billion mark, but will undoubtedly get a sequel. Oh, the humanity of such... How could you say such an evil, hateful thing about a movie? Maybe or maybe not making $1 billion. Think of how silly this is too. Like if you're the Twitter person that's just like, really angry that someone is saying your favorite movie's not going to make $1 billion. There's something weird about that to me. I mean, I guess if you were to take it like on kind of, I don't want to say our side, but just like something I would agree is kind of worth, that I'm interested in it making $1 billion would be the Super Mario movie, right? Like, okay. And then someone tweets, I don't think the Super Mario movie is actually going to make $1 billion. I can't imagine being angry, just angry. Oh, you judging Mario before we've even had a chance to see him eat a mushroom. How dare you? You monster. Like, I can't imagine being that. Why do I have a dog in the hunt of whether a company is going to make $1 billion or not? Like, what does that have to do with my life? Now, yes, do I root for movies I like to succeed? Of course I do. And of course it's nice when movies I like John Wick 4, make an enormous amount of money, and Top Gun Maverick, right? Because it's fun to see the results of that. But does that mean I'm going to lose sleep if it's not making $1 billion and someone goes on Twitter and says, "See, no, I didn't think that was going to make $1 billion." I'm like, no, you suck. You're a troll. You're toxic. Anyway, but what's funny to me, I'm building to a point here. Marvel star Benedict Cumberbatch, this from Fandom Wire, apologized after being targeted by cancel culture for alleged racism, using the term colored actors. My God. What a genocidal maniac is Benedict Cumberbatch. What a monster. What could have provoked him to say something so evil, something so hurtful, something so heinous? And in the year 2023, of all time, wait, it wasn't in 2023? Hold on, sorry, it wasn't in 2023? Well, okay, fine. So I think it was, let's see, when was this? Back in 2015. So wait a minute. We're talking about an 8-year-old tweet. 8 years ago. The 46-year-old actor, Benedict Cumberbatch, was talking about the lack of diversity within UK creative industry. Well, okay. All right, fine. It was 8 years ago. I admit that it wasn't quite as topical as I thought. But how dare he? How dare he criticize the inclusion of people of color, which is what he should have said. How dare he criticize the inclusion of people of color in mod? He's part of the problem. He's toxic. He's a Brexit guy. I just know it. I know he's a Brexit guy. He probably loves Trump. He loves Trump. He's a liar. He should be canceled because he hates people of color. Because listen to what he said. I think as far as colored actors go, it gets really different in the UK. And a lot of my friends have had more opportunities here in the US than in the UK. And that's something that needs to change. Wait, what? What a monster! I thought he was saying something bad about people of color. No, what does he say? He's saying exactly what the woke want him to say, which is they need more opportunities. It's not fair. They're being shafted. They're being given the shaft. But because of one word, one little, admittedly, a bit of an outdated way to say it, I will grant you, and yet, just one little, he's in the middle of saying what they all say. Like, he's in the middle of parroting the message, like a dutiful little, I almost would say Eichmann, but that's probably going too far. A dutiful little party man. You know, he is saying exactly what he's supposed to say. Look at how vicious the woke movement. This is why I say it is an evil movement. Like, it is, you are to be walking on eggshells every day of your life. You are to be monitoring your thoughts. You are to be purity tested every second. You are to have all of your history surveilled. Like, it is just the most totalitarian. You cannot satisfy these people. You can never give them enough. There will never be enough scalps. There will never be enough destroyed franchises. There will never be an apology that is sufficient. There will never be a level of enlightenment that is enlightened enough. It's unbelievable. The man is agreeing with you. But he said it but it's how you say it. Yes, I think we've quite covered that. Meanwhile, over on Marvel Cinematic News, Guardians of the Galaxy is able to hold for the second weekend. So as you know, Guardians of the Galaxy had a weak opening. They only opened to about 118 million domestically, which was far short of what they got in the second film's opening, right? And so the question is, well, how will they do in future weekends? Will they go down like Quantumania and Doctor Strange Mom, or will they hold? And it turns out they're kind of holding the line. And I suspect that is definitely word of mouth because, you know, a lot of people enjoyed this film and there were and it's definitely the least, it's the best film aside from No Way Home. It is the best film of Stage 4 and Stage 5 Marvel Cinematic Universe. You know what's funny too, though? This is a problem for the MCU. Because I did not watch the Guardians of the Galaxy Christmas special for a couple of reasons. I didn't care. I just don't care. I don't care about the Marvel Cinematic Universe very much at all anymore. I just don't. It's over for me. Like, Iron Man's dead. Captain America has moved on with his life. It's all these shows they come out with are trash. Every single one of them. I just can't. None of these movies are good anymore. So I'm sorry. I just don't care what the Guardians are doing out of Christmas. I just don't. Well, it turns out that this is why I was scratching my head on a couple of things in this movie, because I'm sitting in the theater and they're talking about Drax and Mantis, these two characters being sister and brother. And I'm or no, was it that she was Peter's brother? I can't even remember. Because there was a lot of like confusing, like we're all family, but we're not family, but we are actually family kind of talk in this movie. So I believe it was that Mantis and Peter are brother and sister because they both were descended from Kurt Russell's character, Eos, was it in the second film? I forget his name. Egos, maybe. And anyhow, so I'm scratching my head because they're talking about, oh, well, because yeah, she's my sister or he's my brother, and I'm like, what? I must have forgotten something, and it's because I didn't watch the stupid Disney Plus special that I was behind, and I'm thinking to myself, all of these films are going to suffer from this. All of these films are going to have this problem, which is if people aren't interested in the Disney Plus shows, they're not going to know all these references. They're not going to understand it. So anyhow, I was pretty harsh on Guardians 3 in my last stream. I will admit, I kind of went pretty hard. I was hard on it. It's only because I love them. It's only because I love you, Marvel. I'm being hard on you because I see a great future possible for you. And I want you to live up to that potential. It's tough love. And I was hard on it because I hated it. I really wanted to walk out of the theater. I hated this movie. I just did. But I do acknowledge there were a lot of parts of the movie, that in isolation were really good. Like there were things with Rocket and the animals. Like I said, I kind of dipped in and out. It was like kind of it's like when you're getting bad reception on your cell phone and you miss every other word. I was sort of half in and half out all the time on that. Because like part of it was really touching. Part of it was not. Peter was pretty good. But then Gamora was annoying. And it was like, but Nebula's still around. But she's saying things Nebula wouldn't say. And they had her dressed like a dude. Like she did not look at all appealing at all in this one. She looked weird. They all were wearing like t-shirts and shit, and it just did not look good. So anyway, but that being said, I understand why people like it because there were a lot of moments in the film that had a lot of heart, and there was potential. And their uniforms are cool. I like their uniforms. But why do I tell you about this? Because I just told you about all these little woke cancellations we just went through here. Well, my point is this. Here's a class act dealing with the woke crowd in the way I think they should be dealt with. Chris Pratt, this from CBR.com, responds to anti-Christian criticism by quoting the Bible. Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 and the Super Mario Bros. Movie star Chris Pratt dismisses critics of his Christian faith with a biblical reference. Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 and Mario Bros. Star Chris Pratt hits back at the anti-Christian critiques about his church affiliations, quoting the Bible in his defense. And so basically, here's the deal with Pratt. They basically think that he was a member of this Windsong, I think it's called Windsong Church, which is supposedly anti-LGBTQ, LGBTQ plus QIA, up, down, left, right, press, pause. And all they have is basically a standard Christian stance on it. So in other words, they're a pincushion that the left has turned their guns on them. And but Pratt has never been a member of this church, and he was able to basically prove it. So anyway, he then said Jesus went through his share of hate too. Pratt says, "If I was of this world, they would love me just like that. But as it is, I've chosen out of this world." That's John 15:18 through 20. He said, "That's the way it is. Nothing new, 2,000 years ago, and they hated him too." And, the reason I find this to be a classy way of going at it is, when he was getting criticism for doing the voice of Mario, which was a critique of his performance, did he say, "Oh, you're a bunch of toxic man babies, you're a bunch of toxic trolls, oh yeah, this is toxic fandom"? No, he said, "Well, look, I understand. This is an important character to you. I know that this is your childhood, this is the soundtrack to your childhood. Come see the movie. Just give us a chance. Like, we really worked hard on this. We wanted to get it right. Just give it a chance." And I think, that's the difference between asking and demanding, right? When you are asking your audience to take a chance on you, it's amazing how much people are willing to meet you in the middle there. And I think that is the proper way to handle fan backlash is, acknowledge it. Say, look, I understand, right? And, maybe I don't agree, but look, I understand where you're coming from. Give us a chance. At least let us give us a chance to earn your support. But in this case, right, Pratt is basically being attacked in a bigoted way against his religion. And what's amazing is if he were any other religion, he would be able to claim victimhood. But because he's a Christian, well, he's the enemy. And what I like about it is he's basically saying, you know what? Just how it goes. Like, when you walk the path that you're meant to walk in life, there are going to be people who are going to hate you for it. And all you can do is just accept that that's part of the world and just keep your head up. And like, see, that's a good way to handle it. But the most important thing he's not doing is bending the knee. Because if you bend the knee to these people, you are going to be living on your knees. And that's all I have to say about that. I have, what do we have with the chat? Wrangler says good night. Good night, Wrangler. $12.11 says purity tested every second. Yes, well said. Yes. Star Fury says of Guardians of the Galaxy 3 box office, 50% hold. Absolutely. Like, definitely the movie is, it's working. Like, it's, people are liking it. It's definitely word of mouth. And that's this is what's really interesting about that. I don't think that is not a marker of great success, though. That is, okay, they made a movie that's good enough. People aren't, like, actively checking out. But what it tells you is the fact that it opened so poorly shows you that people were not expecting much. They were like, you know what, I'm tired of this. I'm tired of it. It's not worth it. I'm not going to the theater. And they were checked out. It was apathy. And it was only word of mouth that got people to come into the theater. So that just shows you what a sorry state the MCU is in. And, we had a pretty good stream so far. What else we have in the stack? Oh, I was going to talk about Stargate SG-1. Okay. All right, yes. We will get on to Stargate SG-1. But first, and we'll close with that. But first, I have got to tell you about a movie I watched last night. And I thought this was going to be a good one. I was excited for this one. And it actually had to do with an interview with the actor. I saw The Pope's Exorcist, starring Russell Crowe, which is about the real life character, the real life priest, which was Father Amort. No, Gabriel Amort. Father Gabriel Amort. And he was the chief exorcist of the Vatican for something like 30 or 40 years, I think. And he did something like well, they say in an article, he did over 100,000 exorcisms. So I'm like, how do you even visit that many people? Like, can a psychiatrist even visit 100,000 patients in a lifetime? Like, I don't know where that number comes from, but he did a lot. And I remember this guy because I've read about him over the years, just giving interviews about exorcisms and just talking about, he would say there's cases where it's not really an exorcism. But then there are the ones where it's real. Oh, it's real. And when I hear him say shit like that, I don't believe in exorcisms. I really don't. Full disclosure. But I do find it fun when someone kind of tries to convince me that it's real. And so when I hear this priest, persuasively saying no, this shit's real. Evil's real. It's out there. I'm like, ooh, that's creepy. That's cool. And so I'm thinking, The Pope's Exorcist, about this guy, it looks kind of sober. It looks kind of serious. There was some CGI stuff in it. And I'm thinking, well, it's the world we live in. If you're going to do The Exorcist in the modern movie landscape, you're going to use a little CGI. Fine. But I'm thinking, it looks like a kind of interesting take on this man's ultimate battle with evil. And I thought that could be kind of cool. And then I saw the Critical Drinker's interview with Russell Crowe of this character. And Russell Crowe's interview was really intriguing because he just talked about, how he read all the books that Father Amort had in his library, because he'd written all these books about all of the exorcisms he did. And Russell Crowe's talking about how he read all these books and they were just this treasure trove, and how the man was so interesting and he had this sense of humor, and how careful he was about getting the character right. And this got me thinking, ooh, this is going to be great. Like, because here's the deal. I don't understand why people think exorcism movies are scary. I don't get it. Like, if you can explain to me why these movies are scary, let me know, because I don't get it. Let me know in the chat or the comments or whatever. I don't understand it. Let me tell you why I don't understand it. Because there's no way for the bad guy to win in an exorcism movie. Like, the whole point is that all the priest has to do is pray him to death. If the priest prays enough, the demon will lose. And the demon can only possess people, but the demon can never really do anything with the possessed person. Like, yes, there's vomiting and the head spinning around, and yeah, some people get thrown across the room. Fine. But what can the demon really do? Like, it can't really do anything. And we already know that in the mythos, and look, no disrespect to anyone's religion, I'm simply speaking in terms of the film portrayal of this, right? And I would say the film portrayal loosely derives itself from, what Catholics specifically, by and large, believe about this. And I was raised Catholic, so I know. And as a Catholic in an oppressed group, I will say that, you can't, the devil can't, there's a weird thing. I'll just, having been raised Catholic, the whole thing is like the devil is powerless. He's completely powerless before the feet of God. He will lose every time. There's no way he can ever win. At the same time, you should be terrified of the devil because the devil's powerful and he wants to get your soul. And he's, and so I'm saying that's conflicting to me. Like, is he powerful or is he not? Like, which is it? And so in the rules of an exorcism movie, the devil is powerless. The demon is powerless. And so the priest is going to win. And all the priest has to do is just keep praying. And the only tension in the film, therefore, is will the priest like mentally break, at some point? Will the priest give up? Like, that's not a very scary villain to me. It's like, well, if the good guy just gives up saying words, then yes, the good guy will lose and all is lost. It's like, well, that's not scary. So anyway. What does that have to do with this movie? Well, this movie looks scary to me, and I'll tell you why. Because it looked like a movie that was going to be about the question of skepticism versus faith, right? Because the idea is, and here's the thing about the real-life Father Amort. The real-life Father Amort was coming under some criticism in recent decades because a lot of people, including in the Catholic Church, were starting to sour on the idea of exorcism. It was beginning to sound a little bit on the level of like the Inquisition or a witch trial. It was beginning to sound archaic. It was beginning to sound barbaric. Like, oh, these people are just mentally, they got mental issues and we're treating it like it's a witch trial or something. And, this is outdated and we got to get rid of this practice. It's, and I'm not even saying I disagree with that. I'm just saying that's kind of the modern view of it, right? And even the Catholic Church was starting to move on this. And so here's this guy, Father Amort, who's still, in the 2000s, he's still rocking exorcisms left and right. He's still doing them. And he's out there proud about it. He's like, dude, I'll tell you what. I am a damn good exorcist. Let me tell you something about exorcism. I'm the best there is. I am the best there is. And let me tell you, I have spanked so many demons, you ain't gonna believe that shit. I seen shit that would turn you white. It's like, and so the left is at a weird position with him because on the one hand, and I'm just not even just leftist, but just in general, modern thinking, modern skepticism is in a weird position with him because on the one hand, he looks sort of bad for the church. But he's also interesting. It's also interesting at the same time. Like, ooh, he's still doing it. He's still doing the exorcisms, right? Now, what I like about it is most of modern thought is against this guy. Most modern thinking is this isn't real. This is a fake, archaic tradition. There's no truth behind it. It's this one priest. This one whack job priest is out there still doing them. Okay, right? That's how most people think about it. But then you read this guy talking about it, and it sends chills down your spine. When you hear this guy talk about it, it's creepy because he is sober and he is dead serious about it. And it's like, okay. He's like, dude, evil is real. I've seen that shit. You don't want to see it. You don't want to see it. And I'm like, now that is scary. That is creepy because that is like, it's like the alien thing, like alien abduction. It's like right on the edge of do I believe it or do I not? And there's something about that line that is fun to play with. And I thought that is what this movie was going to be. I thought this movie was going to be a sober, not like the Exorcist film of the 70s that's all crazy and there's green vomit everywhere. No. We are going to have a lower to the ground, like more grounded series because it's a real guy. It's not a fictional guy. It's a real guy. And this is going to be a more like a biopic. And the movie is going to look at it from the perspective of the audience is to be kind of on the side of the skeptics. And it's Father Amort who is going to slowly convince us over the course of the movie. You know, my feeling of if this movie, that evil is real, let me finish my thought. So evil is real. That's what we're, and so when we walk out of the theater, we're going to leave with just a little more doubt about whether or not we're right. If this is our position, that this isn't real, right? So in other words, if you come into this theater thinking, it's a bunch of bullshit, it's not real, you know, this exorcism crap needs to go the way of witch trials and the Inquisition, fine. But when you leave the theater, you're thinking, that was some shit right there. Like, I'm thinking, I still don't think it's real, but shit, man. Like, that gave me some things. That's what I wanted. I wanted to leave kind of wondering if I'm right about it, right? And I think that would have been a great movie. You know, just he says things that scare the shit out of you because of what they imply, not what they actually say. And in the first like 10 minutes of this movie, The Pope's Exorcist, we're talking about with Russell Crowe, in like the first 10 to 20 minutes, it's kind of like that. You know, he's got an oddball sense of humor, but he's deadly serious about exorcism. And even the first scene is pretty good. And like he goes before this board of cardinals, and the cardinals are basically saying they're interrogating him because his methods are outdated, and he's exactly everything I've been saying. Like he's got to go. Like this doesn't look good for the church anymore. And he says, and he kind of just like sticks it to him, and he's just basically like, you know, evil exists and it's real. And he says, you know. And they said, isn't it true that like only 2% of these are actual exorcisms? He's like, that is true. 98% of them are mental health, and I refer them to psychiatrists and so forth. And what would you call the other 2%? They ask him. And he says, well, I call that evil. And Russell Crowe's performance of this character, which is the one good thing throughout the movie, is excellent. And it's like, ooh, that's creepy. That's a creepy line. I regret to inform you, my dear sailors and star nuts, that is about the point when this whole thing starts to go off the rails, because then it turns into this film is this was some writers who thought they were going to write the Da Vinci Code. Okay. They thought they were going to write the next Da Vinci Code with this one. You can just tell because it gets so out. They've got the Pope goes into the library, and he starts combing through tomes. What is the name of this demon? This is the worst demon we've ever... And he starts like looking for all the answers. He's got to find all the answers on this demon. And then meanwhile, you know, we've got like Russell Crowe's character, Father Amort, goes to this abbey. So of course, it's so silly. Like the mother of the possessed child her dead husband has left her an abbey, this old ancient abbey in Spain, that's as scary as you could possibly want for the setting of this movie, conveniently. This is what her husband, who looks like an average suburbanite, has for some reason left her in Spain. And she's moved from the United States to Spain to remodel the abbey and sell it, which is pretty silly. But I was willing to allow it because I thought the setup wasn't bad. It was like, okay, that makes sense. She's a modern woman from America. She's not going to believe in any of this crap. That's going to be fun because she's not going to think her son is really the victim of a demon. She's going to think it's mental illness. She's going to take him to the doctors. The doctors are going to be baffled. The priest is going to come in and he's going to tell her, no, there's a demon. And she's going to be like, oh, get out of here with that crap. And it's only when things get really weird, she's going to have to come crawling back. And like that conversation is what's going to be fun. That conversation is what's going to reel us in and pull us deeper and deeper into this creepy question of, is it real or is it a bunch of medieval bullshit? And I was here for it. I was here for that. Instead, what we get is she is never once skeptical. The priest shows up and he's like, you got a demon on your hands. She's like, oh, what do we do? You let me handle it. Okay. The daughter is terrified, but she still sleeps across the hall from her possessed brother. She gets thrown around the room by the demon all the time. And she's like, never once is there even the obligatory conversation of, I'm leaving this house. I'm going to the Holiday Inn. I can't take this. Not even once. Not even once do we get this conversation. She gets no less than 3 times in this movie. She gets thrown around the room by the demon. And the next night she's back in her bed going to sleep. Well, hopefully brother gets better. What? Are you shitting me? The first time that the eyes turned red, I would have been out of that house. I would have been like, I am out of this ancient Gothic abbey that is just perfect for this movie. Now that was bad enough. Okay, this was all bad enough. It wasn't even close to the bottom of this thing, because then it turns into this CGI, crazy, absolutely wacky, just CGI monsters and zombies crawling out of crypts and gas explosions of sulfur. I mean, you can't even believe how ridiculous it gets. It's like, it is basically like a superhero action movie with a buddy cop formula. And the buddy cop, I was even starting to call the lines because I was like, it wasn't the exact line, but it was the type of line. Because it was like, there's literally a moment where he says, it's like at the very end of the film, Father Amort and his now sidekick buddy. This is why I say it's a buddy cop movie. There's like this younger priest that he kind of turns into his buddy cop, you know? And they've just kicked some demon ass by the end of the movie. I swear it's like that. We kicked some demon ass is what we did. It's like Lethal Weapon, but with demons is what this movie is like by the end. And so the younger priest is like, oh, I swear to God, they were setting up like a franchise universe with this. I'm not shitting you. Because like the last scene, the Pope it's like an MCU, like Nick Fury is breaking it down for the Avengers, you know, and they're putting in the hook for the next 5 movies they're going to make is what this was like. The Pope is like, well, you did such a good job with that last demon. And he opens up the tome and he says, these are all the places in the world that are possible sites where the other 100, because there's 200 demons in hell. And so the other 199 demons are in all these different locations. So you got your work cut out for you. And I was thinking, oh yeah, let's kick some demon ass. And literally the priest turns to Russell Crowe and he's like, what should we do now? He's like, let's go to hell. And I'm like, are you shitting me with this? They're setting up a franchise. You can't be serious. Why did they use a real historical figure for this? Why? I was baffled. You literally took an actual historical man who existed and you turned him into a Marvel superhero with CGI zombies covered in blood chasing him around in boring, bloated action scenes. I can't even believe this thing. I cannot believe it. You have got to see it because of how it is bananas, this movie. Like, it starts out exactly like I was describing in the beginning. It's sober. It's creepy. Is this real or is it not? Like it's a biopic. You know, there's even a scene where he's putting around on a motorcycle, you know, and it's this really funny image because it's a priest on a motorcycle, which is very common in the Vatican, and a little motorbike, and it's fun. It's cute. It's like funny because it's like, oh, he's this serious, important exorcist, but he's on a little motorbike, right? And Russell Crowe, in his interview with Critical Drinker, was saying, you know, I found out, you know, that he had a sense of humor, and as I was in Rome, you know, Vatican, researching for the role, I noticed there was all these priests on a motorbike, and I thought, you know, that's such a perfect fit for the kind of man he was. And I said, I want this character on a motorbike. And, you know, the director was telling me, well, that's not really historically accurate. We don't know if he rode a motorbike, so maybe we shouldn't do it. But Russell Crowe argued for that motorbike because, you know what, maybe it's a little bit of a cheat, but it just looks so clever. It just looks so good. We should do it. I'm like, what? You were obsessing over whether it was historically accurate that there was a little motorbike he was riding. Meanwhile, there's freaking, naked chicks covered in blood, and there's CGI monsters climbing the walls, and there's a buddy cop dynamic where he's like plunging into the gates of hell. I'm like, what? This was Doom, this movie. It was like the Doom movie by the end. So I'm not even joking either. There's literally like a pit from hell they have to like force the demon back down into. I'm watching this with a couple of family members who, gosh, these dang earphones. I hate earbuds. These are the only earphones that would work. So I probably don't need it because I'm not doing any videos. There you go. So I'm watching this with some family members who are religious, of course. Now, I am not religious. I went from being religious to an atheist, and now I'm sort of non-religious, but agnostic, leaning on there's some kind of higher power. So you know where I stand. But I'm definitely, I'll tell you one thing about my belief on religion. For a while, I was convinced by the atheist crowd that religion was a blight on humanity and it had to be removed. And you know something? The fascist woke movement has changed my mind about that. Like, they have absolutely changed my mind. It's like, wow, if this is what we get when religion goes bye-bye, you know what? I'll take my chances with the Inquisition. Thank you very much. I'll take my chances. Because, yeah. So that's where I stand on it. That is where I stand on it. But that being said, do I believe in like the doctrinal Catholic doctrine on this? Doctrinal doctrine. Do I believe the Catholic doctrinal beliefs on this issue? No. Like, it's total fantasy to me. That being said, it still could have been a really good movie, but I'm watching it with two family members who they seriously believe this is real, right? And they're watching this movie, and I'm groaning, and I'm like, oh, geez. I'm rolling my eyes over and over because there's literally moments where the demon throws someone in this movie, and it's funny. Like, it doesn't look scary. It looks hilarious because there's a moment, I'm not shitting you, when the mother is being attacked by one of the demon-possessed people, and she puts her head, the mother's head, she's a human, she's not possessed, her possessed child puts her head through a porcelain sink and busts it into pieces. Her head busts a porcelain sink into pieces, and she's fine. She's fine. She just gets back up. This happens in demon fights, don't you know? Oh my God. So I'm groaning and I'm rolling my eyes, and they're like, oh, Garrett, because they know me. They're like, you're going to rant about this on your channel tomorrow, aren't you? I'm like, you're damn right. The captain's going to rant about it. The captain's going to go on an epic rant about it. But I said, look, and I told them all the things I'm telling you. And they just said, well, see, your problem is you just rewrote it in your head before you watched it. And I said, no, I didn't. I rewrote it while I was watching it. And I said, it's not my fault that I simply see the good movie that it could have been, and it's bothering me. That's not my fault. And then they're like, well, you just are ruining it for yourself. And I said, okay, fine. Did you like the movie? And they're like, well, no. I'm like, well, then why are you sweating me about this? Like, literally, they're upset that I'm poo-pooing the movie and I'm being such a sourpuss. And they're like, and then I just point blank ask them, did either of you enjoy this movie? Well, no. I'm like, okay. So what's your problem? Then you agree with me. So anyway, I am really disappointed because I seriously thought the Pope's Exorcist, I was going to go to the theater for this, but I did the whole home rental thing because I just couldn't make it to the theater. And I'm like, wow, that was a smart move because that would have been a waste. That would have been a waste of a drive right there. So there you have it. The Pope's Exorcist. It sucks, man. Miss it. It's like, or watch it for the laughs. Actually, it's kind of amazing how bananas it is. Like, if you literally just want a buddy cop wannabe Da Vinci Code movie, like, that has none of the fascination or interesting like twists and turns of a Da Vinci Code, but thinks that it does. And like a movie that has none of the scariness of The Exorcist, but thinks that it does, and is doing like a buddy cop thing with a boring priest that's not a very interesting buddy cop, then watch this movie because it's bananas. It's like, I swear, they cast this guy who plays the sidekick priest in this. It's the only way I could describe it. They cast, I swear to God, I don't know what it is, but it's like they went and found the most boring man on planet Earth. They went and found the most boring, vanilla, like nothing real special. No offense to the guy. You know, I'm sure he's a wonderful guy. But he's got nothing particularly interesting about him. He doesn't look ugly. He doesn't look handsome. He just looks like a man. And he looks like a priest. He says lines like a priest would say. Like just boring as hell. Like just and yet the movie is like, okay. There's a moment where the devil possessed child bites off the ear of this priest, and literally, I swear to God, the priest just for no reason is like goes up to the child's bed. The child is sleeping and he's full demon mode, right? And the child is sleeping, and for no reason, the priest just like leans close to him and then leans closer. And, well, I mean, given the reputation, maybe there's some reason. That's terrible. Anyway, so he's leaning closer, and he puts his ear up to the child. Now, what do you think is going to happen? What do you think is going to happen, my dear sailor Starnut, if you are a priest and you put your ear very close to a possessed child? What is the very next thing that's going to happen? You guessed it. The demon bites his ear off, and it's this, and everyone's cringing. That's so terrible. And I'm like, no, it's not. This is stupid. Like, what is this? So then he gets a chunk bitten out of his ear, and he goes running away. Again, this is a perfect example of why these movies aren't scary to me. So what? The demon's going to lose. The demon is going to lose. All they have to do is keep praying, and it will lose. There's no tension in an exorcism story. I don't understand why people think these are scary. The Conjuring is so scary. No, it isn't. It's like the demon can't win. Like, that's not scary. Of course, I haven't seen The Conjuring, so that's probably unfair of me to say. I will admit, Captain is nothing if not fair. I have never seen an exorcism film that scares me. I just haven't. Partly because, to me, it's just it can't scare me because it's not real. But then again, I don't think ghosts are real. But they scare me. So something about a ghost story creeps me out, at least. And, you know, I don't even really need to be scared to have fun with a horror movie. If I feel creeped out, I'm having fun. Like, if I feel just, ooh, that's creepy, I don't like that. That's enough for me. I'm having a good time. So I prefer like Guillermo del Toro is better at horror than most horror filmmakers. And he can do kind of the bombastic stuff and get away with it more than other creators. So I'm a big fan of Guillermo del Toro. But anyway, so the priest has got his ear bitten off, right? What does he do? He goes down to the chapel and he's just daubing it. He's got a chunk of his ear is missing, folks. And he's daubing it with a napkin. And he's just, oh man, this has been a rough night. This has been a real rough night, it has. And I'm like, dude, no hospital? Like no stitches? Like just, no. Just gonna chill in the chapel. It's not even like it's out of a sense of stoicism either. Because like if it were just, you should go get that looked at. Go to the hospital. I'll watch the boy while you go to the hospital. And no, I have to be here. I can't leave you alone, Father. You know, that would have been fine. Like that would have made sense. Because oh no, he's stoic. He's walking it off. Okay, cool. That gives him a little bit of man cred. I'm with it. No, there's none of that. He just for no reason. He just got. Yeah, the ear, don't ask. It's a long story. Not really. I bent down to listen to a demon sleep for some reason, and it went badly. That's all it was. It went badly for me. That's like, you know, you can almost hear, like, while the demon child is biting his ear, you can almost just hear him saying, oh, I instantly regret this decision. I regret this decision. It's like... No, so that's another reason why it's not scary. The only way the demon can even hurt you is if you bend down to put your ear next to it. Just leave the room. It's like the zombie thing. How do you escape a zombie? Like, you just walk faster. It's like, how do you escape a demon-possessed child? Like, just leave the house. Like, you know, walk out of the room and just don't go back in there. Come on. That's not scary. Who is scared in that movie? I'm sorry. Exorcism movies suck. I don't understand why they're even a thing. But this could have been good. And it wasn't. Star Fury says ear bite. 1211 says ear fetish. Star Fury says, night, everyone. All right, good night, everyone. You know, we'll save Stargate SG-1 for the next stream because I feel we've been at it for a few hours. And 1211 says, would have been cool if Charles Martinet, the true Mario OG, voice acted instead of Chris. Yeah, I hear that. I definitely hear that. Speaking of Super Mario Brothers, rough segue there, I will admit. But, you know, Chris Pratt won me over. He was very charming, and you know what he did? He did kind of a New York accent, which kind of split the difference. You know, instead of the phony, well, I shouldn't say phony, but like the super stereotypical Italian accent, he went for a New York accent, which I felt was pretty good. Star Fury says, Devil's greatest victory is convincing humanity that he doesn't exist. There is a need for the return of the Christian military orders. Me for a Knight Hospitaller. Hollywood has to throw shade at Catholicism at every turn. Yeah, I mean, you know, I agree with Knights Hospitaller. That's pretty cool. That is just a rad name, isn't it? The Knights Hospitaller. Even though they're, you know, the whole thing is like the word hospital comes from the Knights Hospitaller because they helped tend to knights that were wounded, if I remember correctly. Yeah, the movie even opens with that quote about the devil's greatest victory. Actually, I think what it says is the devil is happiest when people are convinced he isn't real, and that was a direct quote from Father Amort himself. And it's, yeah, I mean, it's fine. I believe evil exists. Trust me when I say that. Like, evil is real, and evil is no joke. Like, where it exists, it is no joke, and it does not fuck around. So I am not denying that. I just don't particularly believe in that deity. So that is not to say that the Christian belief in the devil is not allegorical for something that is real, which is, in my view, the human capacity of evil, and possibly a force of the universe that one could call malevolent, right? There are, you know, I would say the materialistic, atheistic view of the universe is that the universe is impartial, it is indifferent, it is an inanimate object. It simply is a clock without a clock maker, and all it is doing is ticking. And I believed that for a time. And what I sort of now believe is that it's a mixture. It's somewhat that, and it is also somewhat things that are beyond our understanding. And and we are a part of all of that. And I don't mean the physical we, I mean the we as in the consciousness that exists in the universe. You know, the world of form, right? And so I believe there are forces in that universe that are not impartial. And many, I think, are benevolent and many are not. And that's probably getting too in the weeds about it. I'm just saying, like, I don't deny the existence of evil, but I'm sorry, I can't be bothered to be afraid of an exorcism movie. Look, it's mostly to just do with the plot problem of, like, the priest can't lose. He can't lose. You can't have an effective villain if the hero can never lose. You know, that's why Game of Thrones kind of was cool for a while. I'm over it now, but all right, my dear sailors and starnauts, I do appreciate you keeping me company on this beautiful Sunday afternoon, Mother's Day. Go give your mother a call. That special lady. Thank her for bringing you into the world. And this has been the Captain's Cast on the channel Swords and Starships. I am your host, Captain Garrett. If you liked the stream, please do me a favor and hit that like button. Share the channel. Share it with anyone that you think might enjoy it. And if you enjoyed it, I'm so honored to have you here. And if not, well, thanks for stopping by anyway. And I would just say I also have a locals channel I'm working on building. It's called swordsandstarships.locals.com. One thing I'd like to do with that channel is do like some gaming live streams and just some cool stuff. So it's free to join and message me. And there is a member support level. Yeah, it's not much going on with it yet, but I'm working on it. I'm working on things, and I am working on Iron Age content. I am working on an Iron Age sci-fi story, and there will be more on that soon. But I have to get certain things done before I'm ready to unveil it. So I'm working on it. I am not just bitching, I'm also writing. So we will win, as the great Eric July, the young Ripa, has so often said in his famous call to arms. So thank you for joining us. Thank you on this vessel of entertainment news. Fu Man Blue says, so long, Captain. So long, Fu Man Blue. Adios, says 1211. I salute you, sir. I salute you. That is Captain's Cast. And until next time, I will see you out there.